Asterisk, it seemed. Was it really the case? Asterisk. After hearing Leon's analysis and questioning, the rebels, who had been somewhat muddled with their bows, uncertain whether they truly opposed the leader, finally became thoroughly sober. Yes, that's exactly it. Although I wasn't as clear-headed as young Baskin, able to directly articulate why, I must have vaguely sensed something was off, which is why I felt Nathan was unfit to be the leader. No wonder I suddenly bowed to young you. Don't let him fool you. Noticing the gradually changing gaze of the people in the room and their subtly shifting attitude towards the opposing side, the middle-aged man, sensing that the tide had turned, couldn't help but exclaim anxiously, "Think carefully. How old is young Baskin this year? And apart from attending a public school use your brains." Those words just now, could someone who attended only a few years of public school say such things? I suspect he's not even young Baskin at all. After hearing the middle-aged man's reminder, the group of rebels in the room couldn't help but change their expressions, vaguely realizing that young Baskin indeed seemed off. Several people who moved around the valley more, with some knowledge of young Baskin's family situation, immediately cast doubting glances. Asterisk, was Nathan not wrong after all? Asterisk. Setting aside why the supposedly silent and withdrawn young Baskin suddenly became so eloquent, even his educational level from a community school couldn't possibly allow such an impromptu, clear-cut analysis, let alone the latter part, where he examined in layers with aggressive questioning. Asterisk, I was indeed a bit, but it doesn't matter. Asterisk. Feeling the suspicious eyes of the rebels upon him, Leon couldn't help but squint slightly, then sighed with a look of disappointment. Mr. Nathan, you still didn't understand where exactly you went wrong. You think questioning my identity, to be honest, I even find you a bit pathetic now. Pitiful in that you can't even identify your true opponent. After deliberately obscuring the focus to divert attention, Leon sat back in his chair, in the gaze of all present, unhurriedly dragging out time as he said, Mr. Nathan, before I give you this answer, could you first tell me what the first textbook a 6-year-old child receives from the community school upon enrollment is? What are you trying to pull? Caught off guard by Leon's strange question. We're discussing your identity right now. It has nothing to do with school textbooks at all. Don't try to use this method to evade my question. I am answering your question. Having seized the initiative again, Leon spoke rapidly as he said, If you've forgotten, I'll tell you. The first set of textbooks in community school is about reading and phonetics, and the material used to teach children to recognize words is the nearly 300-year history of the kingdom. The first sentence all the children in the kingdom learn while grasping reading is about how the kingdom came into existence. Do you remember what that sentence said? Of course I remember. Striving to regain control of the conversation, the middle-aged man said, But that sentence has nothing to do with the current sit. It has everything to do. Leaning on his excellent script skills brought by elite performer, Leon gave a powerful shout, regaining control of the discussion, and solemnly recited, With the joint support of nobles, citizens, factory owners, and merchants, the royal family expelled the previous rulers, absorbed fragmented city-states that couldn't bear the plundering of other kingdoms, thus establishing the current kingdom. This is the first sentence a vast majority learn. So what about that and the current sit? So, it wasn't the royal family that established the kingdom and then obtained the majority's support. It was after winning the support of most forces that the current royal family successfully established the kingdom. This is something even children know. After interpreting this sentence, Leon looked at the somewhat dazed middle-aged man and shook his head. If you truly meant what you said about that's easy for you to say. Discomfort by Leon's words, the middle-aged man gritted his teeth and struggled to argue. We are the rebels. Those who join us are either impoverished, injured veterans, desperate bankrupt civilians, or workers living under unbearable oppression. What value can these people provide? And why would those forces support us? Instead of daydreaming about baseless hopes, we might as well do as I say. First, gather. You see, that's our biggest disagreement. Interjecting again to cut off the middle-aged man's argument, Leon shook his head, earnestly provoking. Sir Nathan, I don't know your exact background, but I do understand one thing. Even if you created the rebels single-handedly, deep down, you still look down on us and don't believe we have any value. Damn it! Hearing Leon's words, the middle-aged man, realizing his slip of the tongue, was startled and quickly tried to amend. This isn't about looking up to or down on anyone. I'm stating facts. Whether it's the nobility, merchants, or parliament, no one would support us. Have you ever considered why those people wouldn't support us? Feeling the gentle vibration of the small mirror in his pocket, along with a tap on the belly from a dog's paw, Leon knew that Senior Emma was almost here. He calmly continued, because under your leadership, we are just a wandering will-o'-the-wisp, burning wherever it goes, never even opening our mouths in daylight to ask for what we really want. To put it plainly, precisely because you look down on us from the bottom of your heart and never tried to tap into our value, the rebels in your hands are just weapons to launch attacks. Of course, they get no support. As Leon spoke, he discreetly touched the black anger, resentment, doubt. It's working. After his deliberate provocation, the rebels were becoming increasingly dissatisfied with middle-aged Joshua. By the time Senior Emma arrived, Joshua might not even be able to rally them. Sir Nathan, from the start of entering the meeting room, it took no more than a single meal to bring the rebels to the brink of disbandment. Leon continued to fan the flames. For so many years, there have been thousands of old soldiers who retired due to injuries around the capital city alone. Workers risking losing limbs for machines, working high-intensity shifts for over 10 hours a day, yet can't even earn enough to feed their families, numbering in the hundreds of. There are also small handcraft workshops going bankrupt under the impact of big factories. Farmers having their land seized and grain prices driven down, forced to work on noble estates, and impoverished citizens struggling to find even one stable job. Do you have any idea how many people there are in total? I think. You couldn't possibly know. Because you've never thought we were worth it, you haven't even. Facing the middle-aged man, choked into silence. There are so many people living in pain, longing for change, or even 1% of them began to identify with us. No one would dare ignore our opinions. If you did that, even if the royal family didn't support us, they wouldn't arrest us. When we start trying to voice ourselves in the open, and once we have this genuine pivot, there will be so many more things we can do next. The royal family wants to balance the nobility to control the increasingly massive group of merchants. Parliament wants to limit the powers of the royal family and the nobility to regulate business practices of the chambers of commerce. The nobility wants to gain more power, to truly have a share in commerce. Merchants want to break free from binds, to establish favorable business laws, to prevent being strangled and squeezed by the other sides. After briefly outlining the basic demands of the kingdom's various factions, to gain support, we must first make ourselves valuable. When we truly become a force, we become a crucial weight that can be thrown into the balance in these power struggles, influencing the swing. In exchange, the forces backed by us must also offer some benefits. If factory owners want our support to avoid being squeezed by the royal family and the nobility, they must carve out salary space for ordinary people. If the royal family wants to crush the old nobility with the help of citizens and workers, they need to provide more legislative protection. And if the parliament wants support from citizens, at this point, Leon paused slightly, scrutinizing the captivated expressions of the rebels within the room, and raised his tone slightly. Ladies and gentlemen, once those who follow us truly savor the benefits we bring, letting more people see the significance of having someone to speak for them, more and more people will start leaning towards us. And when we become truly powerful, competing with the royal family, the nobility, the parliament, and the chambers of commerce, we can even reverse the situation, actively forcing other forces to make concessions to us. By that time, the nobility, fearing being complete, merchants and factory owners, worried about boycotts and bankruptcies, will have no choice but to favor us. As our seats in the parliament increased, the prime minister had to take our opinions into account when issuing decrees. The royal family even needed to consult us before making. And this wasn't even the end. It wasn't over yet. We had already become so powerful, and there was still more to come. Asterisk. Upon hearing that this was not the endpoint, the rebels inside the room could hardly bear it any longer. Each one clenched their fists with rapid breaths, eyes tightly fixed on little Baskin, as if he was glowing, eager to hear how much more formidable the future rebels could become. Leon's hollow visions were detectable to those who were truly experienced in politics. Just a bit of tasting with their upper lips, and they could tell that the filling of this pie wasn't substantial. Although the feasibility of these things wasn't entirely absent, and was certainly better than mere fantasies, the extent of its goodness was quite limited. Just figuring out how to unite everyone wholeheartedly and avoid being co-opted and divided was a hurdle that couldn't be bypassed, not to mention how to deal with the counterattacks of other forces, or even being crushed by joint forces. If these issues couldn't be resolved, it might just lead to an endless quagmire. But for the rebels, who barely had average community college education, or had dropped out of their initial birth education, and couldn't write anything except their own names, these seemingly magnificent promises were enough to dizzy them with excitement. As for co-opting and dividing, or counterattacking and crushing, asterisk laughable. Over the years, we've been chased by the military and secret police to the point where we dared not show our faces, only able to hide in this valley 800 miles away from the capital city, living in mud houses. The worst was running into a big tiger baring its teeth while going out for a pee. Could things really get worse than they were now? Asterisk. Asterisk finished. Completely finished. Asterisk. Looking at how everyone in the room was staring fanatically at Leon, with not a single person glancing at him, the middle-aged man felt a chill run through his body. Asterisk. The Aquarius director's warning was accurate word for word. This person, whether or not he's little Baskin, was indeed incredibly dangerous. Asterisk. After years of effort, he finally gathered enough strength to launch an attack on the boarding tower, but in less than 30 minutes it was all ruined. He not only destroyed the rebels but also wrecked my plan to conceal the kingdom's mineral resources through the boarding tower attack and thus avoid war. Asterisk. It's over. From now on, everything is over. Asterisk. Gritting his teeth fiercely, middle-aged Joshua glared at little Baskin across the room. He regretted not going over to kill him straight away when he discovered the six-pointers had moved last night, and even allowing him to attend the meeting. I was truly foolish. Watching little Baskin stand up among the expectant gazes of the crowd, seemingly wanting to say more, the middle-aged man couldn't help but take a deep breath, then slowly stood up as well. Nathan, sir? Noticing his movement, Leon raised his eye. Do you have anything else to say? Yes. The middle-aged man slowly nodded, then opened. I was thinking if I had... Nicole? Accompanied by his startled voice, the door behind Leon squeaked as if someone pushed it open, causing Leon's heart to jolt as well. He then turned back to look, and then, bang! A spiraling silver-white nail suddenly drilled out of Leon's heart, disappearing into the empty doorway. And this wasn't the end. Before the shot Leon could even turn his head back, the middle-aged man, who hated him to the core, continuously pulled the trigger, firing 7 more shots in rapid succession, turning Leon's back into a bloody mess. Huh! Little Baskin? Nathan! What I meant to say was, I wish I had done this back then, after emptying the magazine into little Baskin from behind, effectively killing him. The middle-aged man, eyes still burning with hatred, threw the nail gun onto the ground. He pointed at the rebels who had betrayed him and coldly laughed. Moreover, you fools, do you really think following his plan would work? Do you think those nobles and merchants are here to do charity, and would honestly follow the kingdom's laws to play that out in the open? I don't deny that little Baskin had the ability to accomplish what he claimed. After all, he made you betray me over a single meal, and in that aspect, he indeed had a terrifying talent. But do those nobles and merchants need to outtalk little Baskin as I did? They only need to spend a little money to hire a desperate fool with a gun, like me. Bang! After making a shooting gesture, the middle-aged man coldly laughed. Wake up! The only one who can save the kingdom is me. No matter how beautiful the path little Baskin pointed out to you seemed, That worthless ability of his which merely makes people bow couldn't protect his safety. As soon as he, the leader, died, everything would just be a deluge. You're not dead yet. Sorry. Pa! Spitting the bloody foam out of his mouth, Leon felt the hole in his chest heal, then adjusted his clothes before turning back. He faced the rebels, who were nearly in shock, and offered an apologetic smile. I'm sorry. I just found out that my ability seems to go beyond making people bow. It should also include an undying body. Watching Leon, who had just finished speaking and was now bouncing around, middle-aged Joshua truly felt a bit numb. This little Baskin of unknown origin seemed like someone sent down from the heavens specifically to disgust him. His years of hard work had been destroyed in just 30 minutes. Now the rebels he'd personally established not only had nothing to do with him anymore, but judging by the look in their eyes, they were already considering whether to take him down. If he delayed any longer, it was questionable whether he could even get away. Phew! I admit you won. Glaring at little Baskin across the table, the middle-aged man, who had lost miserably, gritted his teeth and said, "But don't think it's over. When these fools following you hit a wall and realize how unrealistic your talk is, they'll betray you just like they betrayed me today. You're wrong. Today, in this room, nothing happened that had anything to do with betrayal." Rubbing his heart that still throbbed with phantom pain, Leon resisted the urge to grimace. He shook his head and, with a solemn expression, continued to speak piercingly. You couldn't bring them the results they wanted, nor could you make them agree with your ideas, and you couldn't give them a future worth expecting. Of course, they wouldn't choose to follow you. Or, if you insist on using the word betrayal, it's not them who betrayed you. You betrayed them first. I won't talk to you about this. Knowing that his way with words wasn't even worthy to tie the shoes of the person across from him, the middle-aged man, who realized he had lost the upper hand, decisively abandoned debating with Leon. After taking a deep breath, he clenched his fists and rationally negotiated. Little Baskin, whether you really are Little Baskin or not, I'll just call you that for now. If you really are, as you say, prepared to save this country, then you must follow my instructions. Lead people to raid the boarding tower, kill those Kralik Kingdom scouts, and destroy all data concerning the kingdom's mines. Not expecting that even at a time like this, middle-aged Joshua would still think about attacking the boarding tower, Leon, who knew he came from the future, couldn't help but frown and ask, "Why?" "I can't say." Upon hearing Leon's question, the middle-aged man couldn't help but scowl and replied darkly, "The more I disclose about the future situation, the greater the impact, and the quicker I'll die. Understand? Also, since you're so smart, why not figure it out yourself?" Asterisk that insufferable attitude. Confirmed, this guy was absolutely Joshua. Asterisk, looking at the middle-aged man before him who obviously needed a favor, but insisted on putting on airs and talking down to him, Leon couldn't help but smack his lips in exasperation. Since yesterday, he had felt a sense of familiarity, and the reason he didn't associate it with Joshua was because back then, Sir Nathan appeared to have decent emotional intelligence and seemed kind and courteous. A person like that could never be connected to the... But now it appeared that, after personally experiencing the country's downfall and family breakup in the future, this guy seemed to have matured quite a bit. Even though he would reveal his true nature when irritated, he at least learned how to put on an act in normal times. His words needed to be carefully considered. Following the train of thought suggested by middle-aged Joshua, and pondering the potential scenarios, Leon squinted slightly and said, "You mean the scouts discovered a highly valuable..." "That's not what I'm implying." The middle-aged man snorted at Leon's words, instantly denying his speculation. Yet he subtly raised his hand to smooth his hair, showing Leon that his temples had turned a shade whiter. Asterisk suddenly aged. So I guessed it right. Asterisk. Faced with the intelligence Joshua provided at the cost of his life, Leon couldn't help but furrow his brow slightly, vaguely understanding why he suddenly wanted to attack the boarding tower. If there were to be a ranking of the 12 countries in this world by overall strength, the kingdom could only rank around 7th or 8th, whereas the Kralik kingdom, known as the City of Machinery, was steadfastly aiming for 1st or 2nd place. That micronation with a population of only a few million and an area merely half the size of a kingdom county boasted a level of mechanical capability that surpassed other kingdoms by at least 100 years, with the vast majority of work already taken over by machines. However, the intense mechanization induced an almost, in addition to the most basic coal and petroleum, there was Thunderstrike Mine, unique to Thunderstorm Country Vandestone, concentrated whale blubber processed from the whaling ships of Thousand Sails Maritime Country Sao, and the feathers of the solar bird from the Refraction Kingdom Riviere. Anything capable of providing energy would immediately even the sky clippers that traverse the skies, along with the boarding towers standing tall in the territories of various kingdoms, were technologies shared without charge by the Kralik kingdom to achieve their goal of energy seeking. What they offered in exchange for bestowing the power to this demonstrated their enormous demand for. But isn't this still not quite right? After pondering the situation in his mind, Leon's brow furrowed slightly. The Kralik kingdom, though incredibly strong, was lightly populated and couldn't this nation wasn't the kind that was uncooperatively aggressive, so if it were a typical energy resource, given the kingdom's usual stance, it should have opted to hand over the mining rights in exchange for a large sum of money and technological support from the Kralik kingdom. Why choose to go to war? Or, to put it bluntly, the muscular capacity of the king. How could it escalate to the point of war? Are you sure? Secretly grabbing the black goat's horn, Leon in the future, will the kingdom really escalate to necessary war with the Kralik kingdom over those explorers' mining data? I know nothing, though he said he didn't know. He raised his hand to point to his graying temples and said solemnly, I already told you, guess for yourself. No need to guess, your soul has already given me the answer. After observing the middle-aged man's intense yet steady soul flame, confirming his truthfulness about witnessing a future Kralik kingdom attack, Leon frowned and asked, so why? Noting that middle-aged Joshua wasn't bluffing, although disagreeing with his rash attack on the boarding tower and the ire it drew from the Kralik kingdom, Leon still asked, what exactly did those explorers uncover? How could it lead to such chaos? Do you want to know? Glancing at Leon's furrowed brow, the defeated middle-aged Joshua let out a cold laugh, gleefully saying, if you want to know, go ahead and lead a raid on the boarding tower and seize the mining records. Ha, little Baskin, even though you've thwarted me now, I believe that once you see those documents, no matter what you think, you'll eventually make the same choice as I did. As he spoke, the middle-aged man pointed remotely at Leon in challenge, full of resentment. Just wait. The facts will prove to you who is really right between us. Besides, don't think you can capture me. Eyed variously around the room, surrounded by faintly looming rebels, the middle-aged man said with disdain, don't waste your energy. As soon as there's any danger, I'll be teleported away immediately. You damn traitors, you'll forever. Prince Joshua. Hearing his name from Little Baskin, the middle-aged man was taken aback, choking on his unfinished threats and looked with shock at Leon across the room. The rebels inside the room, initially unaware of the name's significance, quickly connected the dots upon seeing his expression, gazing in astonishment at their predecessor leader. Judging by your expression, I must have guessed correctly. Seeing that the middle-aged version of Prince Joshua seemed ready to flee, Leon, lacking the means to hold him back, had to reveal his identity. Having successfully achieved his goal, stalling the withdrawal of Prince Joshua once more, Leon discreetly tapped a small mirror, signaling young Ha to urge Senior Emma, then calmly inquired, Prince Joshua, I'm curious, what exactly have you experienced in the future to change from an arrogant, naive prince into your current self? Little Baskin, you truly are a terrifying person. Silent in contemplation for a while, middle-aged Joshua drew a silk cloth from his pocket and wiped the thin powder off his cheekbone, revealing the two iconic irregular freckles in the rebel's bewildered eyes. That's right, I am Joshua, but not the foolish prince of now, rather the Joshua of the future, the last king of the kingdom. This, how is that possible? A prince? The rebel leader is a prince. Facing the middle-aged Joshua, who calmly confessed his identity, all the rebels faltered, the bald woman in the staunch leader's faction grasping her head in utter pain. If the rebel leader was a prince and the entire group he built by hand, then what exactly had they been opposing all this time? A bunch of fools. He cast a disdainful glance at these former subordinates, then turned his eyes back to little Baskin across the room, perplexed. Tell me, how did you discover me? Actually, it wasn't me. Another you had a nightmare, and after Senior Emma conferred with the director, they deduced your existence after ruling out other possibilities. I merely piggybacked on their conclusion. Certainly, here's the translated passage. Of course, those blunt truths were not something he could tell the middle-aged Joshua. With a slight curl of his lips, Leon gave a profound smile to the perplexed middle-aged man in front of him and improvised. Well, that's because you've shown too many flaws. Flaws? Yes, flaws. Sneaking a glance at the middle-aged man's wristwatch, Leon estimated how much more time Senior Emma would need and then slowed his speech to continue stalling for time. Even though you've changed a lot, even to the extent of treating an ordinary person like me with such gentle words, that inherent pride in your bones just can't be altered. Aside from that, your obsession with saving the kingdom and that inexplicable hatred for the parasites of the kingdom set you apart from others. With a gesture toward others, Leon continued his serious nonsense. Others might also want to save the kingdom, but they aim for change, striving for a better future, whereas the hope you express seems more like trying to make up for regrets. Others' hatred towards those parasites stems from empathy for the victim's plight, but your anger appears more like someone is ruining what belongs to you. Perhaps it's not obvious when looked at individually, but when you display such emotions of hope and anger while with others, you seem out of place. Just such small differences, and I've given myself away? Completely unaware of the other version of himself having nightmares, the middle-aged man, having been thoroughly hoodwinked by Leon's nonsense, couldn't help but take a deep breath and gazed at Leon with complicated eyes, saying, "So in your eyes, I have a family environment that could foster a proud personality, regard the entire kingdom as my property, know what has happened in the future, and am desperately trying to save the kingdom. These aren't enough. Little Baskin, it's one thing you could see through the kingdom's situation at a glance and propose feasible plans. But with just these details, I don't believe you could deduce my identity. Indeed, because it's not something I deduced. I only sneaked in yesterday. How would I know any details? These words were crafted to fit an answer, purely to stall for time and fool you. It's supposed to sound unreasonable. Of course, relying solely on these isn't enough. I do have other pieces of information. Narrowing his eyes while assessing the middle-aged man's expression, the successful trap-setter Leon smiled and returned. Prince Joshua, now we both have things we want to know. Are you willing to make a trade with me? You tell me what those mines truly are, and I'll tell you how I guessed your identity. What do you think of this deal? Unaware of Leon's intention to pull a fast one, faced with the offered exchange, the middle-aged man, filled with questions craving answers, unconsciously clenched his fist, engaging in a fierce psychological struggle. After a moment, he slightly loosened his tightly clenched fist and shook his head with gritted teeth. You devil! I won't trade. If you want to know what it is, relying on immense willpower. However, what the middle-aged man never expected was that just as he pulled the trigger, the little Baskin, who was only supposed to make people bow, merely raised his hand and, with a mime of squeezing air, crushed the gun into a scrap of metal. Upon seeing the golden sparking toad pendant within little Baskin's collar, the middle-aged man couldn't help but shudder, nearly widening his eyes to the limit. You are Ryan Lane. After recognizing his true identity through the toad pendant on his chest that flickered bright, what the hell is going on with this little Baskin? The guy who completely destroyed my years of hard work, and he's that Ryan Lane who has repeatedly opposed me. I won't let him go. I'll kill you. The hatred was watching the middle-aged man, whose eyes instantly turned completely red, climbing onto the long table with both hands and feet and pouncing towards him in fury. Ryan, who unexpectedly retained him successfully, couldn't help but feel a bit of joy in his eyes, considering the many aspects of the instructions for Beyond the Gate that seemed impossible to capture. He had originally given up hope of capturing the middle-aged version of Joshua. However, seeing that Joshua was about to run, and unable to wait for Senior Emma's support, he decided to gamble on the chance, using the Black Goat's intersections to intensify Joshua's anger to the maximum. Somehow, because Ryan didn't plan to kill him, or maybe Joshua, whose mind was filled with anger, couldn't perceive danger, the crisis-shifting ability of Beyond the Gate didn't activate. Instead, Joshua was allowed to rush at him barehanded. Perfect. I just learned some fighting techniques a couple of days ago. Watching Joshua, and delivered a swift and clean big slap. Smack! With a resounding slap that echoed throughout the conference room. Middle-aged Joshua's left cheek and Ryan's right hand made an incredibly close-up intimate contact. Even before his body hit the ground, Joshua, with his jaw suffering a heavy blow and his brain shaken, rolled his eyes in midair. His consciousness and half a mouthful of teeth nearly left his body simultaneously, and he fainted on the spot without even managing to make a sound. Serves you right for secretly attacking me. Feeling the familiar touch on his uncle-in-law's face, Ryan, finally delivering the slap, felt as if he was placing the last piece in a puzzle. A tingly itch traveled from his spine straight to the top of his head, filling him with an inexplicable sense of relief. I just forgot to use the newly learned fighting techniques. After diligently studying combat with the female police officer for 2 days, Ryan was eager to try it in practice. But as Joshua's face came within range, somehow, his right hand seemed to have a mind of its own, instinctively swinging over with a smack. Perhaps the previous few slaps created. What a pity. Though he didn't get to showcase his hard-earned with the handprint I left on his face, the two Joshuas finally looked the same. That face seems most pleasant to look at when it's swollen from a slap. What the hell is going on here? Watching Joshua, who had been preparing to escape it's nothing. Just that the conditions for the ability covering the Holy Spirit pendant on his neck. Ryan subtly shifted his footing, kicking the broken nail gun in Joshua's hand under the table. Maintaining a calm exterior, he explained, Nathan just, let's call him that. He just explained that if any danger approaches, he'll be relocated immediately. But I didn't intend to harm him, just briefly explaining why Joshua didn't escape. And after he tapped lightly on the small mirror and continued to urge everyone, although Nathan's identity has issues and his previous we wouldn't know that. Hearing the inquiry from Little Baskin and recalling the formidable Kralik kingdom, the rebels looked at each other, momentarily unsure whether to speak. To say the least, compared to the former leader Nathan. The new leader Little Baskin is clearly more, He seems to be Little Baskin, but just from what he's said, whether he's Little Baskin isn't important anymore. All these years of effort, though many things have been done, upon careful thought, nothing seems to have been accomplished. Everything has been muddled, and in recent years we've even lost track of whether what we've been doing is right or wrong. And today, just sitting here listening to Little Baskin speak for 10 minutes felt like a streetlight suddenly lighting the way on a dark path, or like someone forcefully opening the door to a dark room, making our minds suddenly clear, finally knowing which direction to step in. This feeling should be called reliable. Yes. Following him feels reliable. Seeing the nearly identical meaning in each other's eyes, the rebels finally relaxed their expressions. Though we don't know much else, this new leader is evidently much more reliable than the last one, also clearly a lot smarter. While we might not be as smart as Nathan, compared to Little Baskin, we're probably miles behind. Knowing nothing about the Kralik agents, there's no need to voice opinions on such crucial issues. Just follow the smart guy and call it a day. I'll listen to you. The short man, whose ability temporarily took over physical control, spoke up first. Little Ba, leader, I don't know much about the Kralik Kingdom, but I trust what you say is right. I'll follow you. Yes. After the short man spoke, apparently motivated by some force, more voices of agreement followed. A small-framed man stood up and said, I think so too. Although attacking the boarding tower is risky and may provoke the Kralik Kingdom, I believe in you. Leader, I'm sure you have a plan. The elderly woman, holding a sleeping little girl, nodded slightly. I follow the leader's decision. The man's burned nose expanded slightly. Doesn't matter. I could smell that you're reliable. Seeing the favorable situation of having passed 4 votes in front of him, and hearing the continuous chorus of leader, Ryan's smile froze. Asterisk, don't mess this up. I wanted you to discuss whether to attack the boarding tower to delay time for Senior Emma to arrive and capture everyone. When did I say I was going to be the leader of the rebels? Asterisk. Asterisk also, setting aside my intention to arrest you all, if we talk about true identity, I'm currently the Duke of Lionheart within the old nobility. A prince of the royal family of Traveling Thrush. I hold positions in both nobility and royalty. Asterisk. Asterisk, even if you count my position in the Ryan family, I have hundreds of large and small factories and the largest arms company in the entire kingdom under my name. If you elect me as the leader of the rebels, how is that any different from electing a Jewish person as the German leader? Asterisk. Why don't we first discuss the boarding tower issue? Unable to explain his true identity and afraid of overachieving the red-haired director's expectations, Ryan awkwardly added, Everyone, I'm still young and haven't dealt with much actual business. If you expect me to lead, it's impossible. So let's discuss the boarding tower plan first. I haven't done much of this before, and if I were to take charge of attacking the boarding tower, I wouldn't even know where to start. Do you have any suggestions? Leader, you're being modest. Observing a little Baskin who didn't come across as overbearing this time, not presumptuously accepting a leadership position but rather relinquishing part of his speaking rights. The plump, middle-aged man's eyes showed satisfaction as he stood up with a cheerful grin. Age is not an issue. Lack of experience can be slowly compensated for, but long-term vision is innate. Leader, please don't decline any further. You're the only suitable one for this position. Additionally, should you need experience in the future, I, Oliver, would be more than willing to offer any support needed. I have no objection. Discussing the boarding tower plan wasn't on anyone's mind anymore. Among the remaining 7 rebels, the bald woman, the sole former leader supporter, touched her head and sighed. Though Nathan saved me, but his true identity was actually the prince, and he's been using us as tools. I can no longer believe in him. Little Baskin. No. Leader, as long as you continue to lead us forward, I will always recognize you as the leader. Who? As if to match the mood, little Phoebe, who was fast asleep, shivered slightly, showing a sweet and adorable smile in her sleep. Wow, it's so sweet. ZZZ. Through cunningly devised plans, you completely shattered the trust that the rebel members had in their original leader and gained unanimous recognition from the 7 current core members. You have earned the silver-level hidden badge, Usurper. Usurper. Driven by immense ambition, an aspirant seeks to completely overthrow a legitimate regime or organization using improper or unethical means to fundamentally alter the existing order. Wearing effect, your stealth and efficiency will be greatly enhanced when engaging in illegal or unethical activities. Advancement route. After completely usurping a national-level organization or 10 regional-level organizations, this badge will automatically advance to the gold-level hidden badge, Unrighteous Pretender King. Hidden trait. No need to wear upon successfully usurping a regime or organization. You will forcibly acquire a high-value item from the usurped party. Receiving official certification from the badge system, Leon, who had secured his identity as the leader of the rebels, couldn't help but sigh deeply in his heart. Damn. The director was right, he thought. I really went undercover all the way to becoming the leader. But this badge seems quite powerful. Leon glanced at the new badge on his panel, flickering with a dim silver light and seemingly ready to emit an evil laugh at any moment. He couldn't help but turn his gaze to the middle-aged Joshua beside him. Unfortunately, Leon had acquired the usurper badge only after completing the usurpation. If he had received it earlier, he might have had the chance to take the Beyond the Gate from middle-aged Joshua. But now, according to the behavior of the Aquarius director, if he really attempted to act against Beyond the Gate, that thing would probably activate immediately and escape with Joshua. Wait a minute. As he pondered this, a sudden realization struck Leon, and his eyebrow twitched slightly before he spoke to the group of rebels. Since everyone trusts me, I won't decline. Additionally, attacking the boarding tower involves the Kralik Kingdom, and I don't know enough about it to ensure the right decisions, so the attack is temporarily shelved. However, the investigation can start first. Does anyone have any objections? No objections. All right, I was looking forward to a good burn. Since nobody objects, let's conclude today's meeting here. Not having figured out exactly how to manage these rebel members and considering a way to remove Beyond the Gate, Leon decided not to wait for the long-overdue Senior Emma and instead made a direct decision to dismiss the meeting, saying, "If there's nothing else to discuss, since the gate, opened by Joshua, hasn't closed yet, let's head back. Once there's progress on the boarding tower investigation, we can reconvene. Additionally, Phoebe and Lucy, please stay behind us." Hearing the new leader's request, the elderly woman, looking quite aged, paused slightly, then nodded while holding her still sleeping sister, not moving. The other 5 members of the rebels, filled with anticipation, left the meeting room one after another, passing through the gate as Leon instructed. Watching the expectant figures leaving, Leon couldn't help but rub his temples. Although these core members of the rebels weren't truly bad people, under Joshua's misguided leadership, they had still committed many wrongdoings. Leon wasn't in a position to forgive them on behalf of the victims but couldn't justify disposing of them according to the kingdom's laws either. After all, they were also victims. Besides Joshua's misguided leadership, they had been manipulated into nurturing anomalous objects under the Aquarius director's influence. Their increasing contamination values had magnified the extremism and hatred in their hearts, making it difficult to control. Maybe, after the director finishes the questioning, I should ask if these people meet the standards for recruitment by the Purification Bureau. If, for the sake of guarding a normal world, they risk a nearly 10% mortality rate to fight against abnormals, perhaps it could also count as atonement. Leader. Watching Leon's ever-changing expression and the complex look in his eyes, the elderly Lucy couldn't help but ask, "Did you have something difficult you needed us sisters to do?" "Indeed. There's something I need your help with." Leon nodded. Your sister Phoebe used an anomalous object at Nathan's request recently, erasing many people's memories. Can you have her lift that effect?" "I can do that. It's not difficult." Hearing Leon's request, Lucy readily agreed, but looking at the sleeping Phoebe in her arms, she couldn't help but ask, "Leader, if possible, could we wait until my sister wakes up? You don't know, last time she overused her ability, and her sleepiness is actually restoring her spirit and stabilizing her soul. If she doesn't get enough rest, I'm worried she'll." "No rush. It's fine to lift it when she wakes." Additionally, already aware of the sister's soul status through the Black Goat's soul vision, Leon pondered for a moment before reminding them, "Your abilities are quite unique and can produce effects far exceeding your contamination value, far beyond your level's limits by paying extra costs. That's why you've ended up like this due to excessive usage. During this period, unless absolutely necessary, try to use your abnormal abilities as little as possible. Let me think of a way. Maybe there's a chance to revert." What? Hearing Leon's words, the incredibly aged Lucy was overwhelmingly ecstatic. At this moment, she couldn't care less about the surprisingly detailed knowledge of abnormal ability operations that clearly didn't belong to little Baskin. Filled with disbelief, she asked, trembling, "Leader, are you serious? Can my sister and I really return to our original appearance?" "Yeah." Having consulted the black goat, Leon nodded, answering with confidence. The process should be reversible, but the recovery will take a very long time and can never be entirely complete. In the end, there will always be some lingering issues. For example, your physical state will still be somewhat older than your peers, and your sister's mental age will remain much younger than her peers, but your appearances should be restorable. Enough, enough. That's enough. Touching her wrinkle-filled face, Lucy, overwhelmed with joy, couldn't help but cry tears of happiness. Large droplets of tears fell into the neat braids on Phoebe's head. We don't need to be exactly like normal people. Being able to revert even a little is already plenty. Leader, thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. It's what I should do. Smiling as he sent the grateful Lucy on her way, Leon watched the meeting room, now empty again, and silently walked over to Joshua, who lay amidst a pile of shattered wood. He couldn't resist giving him a firm kick in the butt. You certainly caused a lot of trouble. Asterisk clearly holding the script of a reborn hero protagonist from a sensational novel where the country is saved after falling into ruin, you wound up carrying out petty attacks and caused destruction, doing nothing but causing trouble like a third-rate villain. You really are, asterisk. Asterisk well. Never mind. Not having personally experienced the things he went through, my criticism might be unfair. But this kick was necessary. Asterisk. Resisting the urge to spit on him, Leon pulled out a rope and tied him up, then removed the watch capable of detecting aptitude and tossed it into the small mirror. He then knocked on the mirror's surface, calling out Young Ha. What's going on? Why hasn't Senior Emma arrived yet? Woof, 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 woof. She's not here. She isn't at the Purification Bureau. Senior Emma isn't here? Hearing Young Ha's report, Leon frowned. Before heading to the questioning, the director had promised him that Senior Emma would be stationed at the bureau, ensuring she could assist at any time. And with the responsible nature of Senior Emma, an ordinary situation couldn't possibly lead to her abandoning her post. So, was there an abnormal launching a large-scale assault in the capital city? Or was there an issue with her daughter? Woof, 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 woof. She's not here, but there's a letter for you on her desk. If she still left a letter, then the situation shouldn't be too dangerous, right? Hearing Young Ha's words, Leon felt a bit relieved. He then accepted the envelope, still bearing Young Ha's tooth marks, tore it open, and read through it swiftly. Leon, about an hour after you and the director left, investigators from headquarters came, claiming that a few high nobles who had betrayed the Bauhinia family were dead, with traces similar to those left by my execution platform on their bodies. They requested my presence at headquarters for investigation. The situation caught me off guard, and I had no choice but to try evading the investigators and leave a message for Jerry's friends, asking him to sit in at the bureau in my stead and take on the responsibility of supporting you. However, his previous task hasn't ended, so it's unlikely they received the message in time. If you're seeing this letter, it means you are likely in a dangerous situation, so please hold out for 2 days. He will definitely arrive in 2 days. Damn Aquarius director. After reading the letter left by Senior Emma, Leon's face darkened, realizing it was probably another move by the Aquarius director. Leon and the director had planned to take advantage of the Aquarius director's absence to directly raid the rebels' base. But the Aquarius director hadn't been idle either. If Leon deduced correctly, he had likely used methods similar to Senior Emma ahead of time, eliminating her enemies. His objective was most likely to strike the Purification Bureau while the director was away and Senior Emma was under investigation, aiming to seize the photos in the director's drawer. As for the person tasked with attacking the Purification Bureau, looking over at the mirror world, where the watch with 6 pins clung unwaveringly to the photos, Leo couldn't help but click his tongue. There was no need to guess. It was certainly Joshua, and this watch was the tool intended to find the photos. Lucky for Leon, his usurpation was swift, allowing him to capture Joshua beforehand. Otherwise, he'd have only managed to steal fake photos. Confirming this incident had turned out to be a close call, Leon couldn't help but laugh. his foot once again involuntarily kicking the conniving old brother-in-law involved with the Aquarius director. It could be said that when it came to cunning, his director wasn't any less crafty than the Aquarius director and could even be considered a step ahead. Not only did they prepare fake photos in advance, but they also sent Leon ahead to wipe out the rebels' stronghold preemptively. Besides, capturing Joshua was an unexpected bonus. Conventionally, touching the Beyond the Gate would cause it to disappear instantly, but with Senior Jerry, the master thief, around, the Aquarius director was likely to lose it. Thinking of the cunning hand of fate that could steal the object most influencing a person's destiny, Leon couldn't help but look up, gazing at the Beyond the Gate, left open after the sisters had left, showing a confident smile. When it comes to the thing that most influences Joshua's destiny, apart from it, there probably isn't anything else. So, you want me to help you steal from him to see if we can pilfer that anomalous object called the Beyond the Gate? Returning to the bureau after completing the task and hearing Leon's request, Jerry hesitated as he looked at the middle-aged man tied up on the sofa in his office. This might be slightly difficult. It's not that it can't be done, but we might be in a bit of danger. ? Facing Leon's somewhat puzzled expression, Jerry organized his thoughts and explained, "My cunning hand of fate has a very high hierarchy, but overall, it still falls within the realm of human. To use the analogy of the Leon value you summarized, it can effectively work on targets with a Leon value below 60 points. According to our director's estimates, 60 points in Leon value is roughly the boundary between human and God. Once this line is crossed, intelligent life forms more resemble some kind of humanoid anomaly compared to humans. Not only can they resist part of the effects, but if the power gap is too large, they can trace back along the source of the anomalous effects. And the Aquarius director's Leon value has surely exceeded 60 points. So, if that Beyond the Gate is truly from the Aquarius director given to this person, then when I use the cunning hand of fate on him, he'll most likely be able to locate us and might come directly. So that's how it is." After listening to Jerry's explanation, Leon pondered for a moment, then said, "We're not afraid of alerting the Aquarius director." Before leaving, the director promised Senior Emma and me that regardless of whether or not the questioning succeeds, he will definitely keep the Aquarius director tied up at the main bureau to facilitate our actions here. We can't guarantee too much time, but for at least a week or two, even if he knows what we're doing, he definitely won't be able to come back. Jerry, what's your success rate of stealing the Beyond the Gate? That actually is quite high. Jerry thought for a moment before responding, "If I directly used it on the Aquarius director, I reckon I could only steal a few fragments. But since this person's anomalous object was given by the Aquarius director, and intermediaries in between, the cunning hand of fate should still work normally. Then let's steal it." After hearing Jerry's words, Leon weighed the pros and cons and the potential outcomes, then decisively made the call. Even though our director initiated the questioning, its success rate isn't actually high. He just wants to catch a slip-up by the Aquarius director to force him to accept memory reading by the Bureau. If we can get the Beyond the Gate out as evidence and present it to the main Bureau, even if the person who created this thing is the future Aquarius director and not his current self, it would still be enough to trouble him immensely. That's a valid point. After hearing Leon's analysis, Jerry thought for a bit and nodded in agreement. If they could prove the future Aquarius director dared to target the royal family, it would indirectly increase the suspicion that the current Aquarius director is also breaking the rules, helping the director confirm his accusation of privately mass-producing anomalous objects. As for offending the Aquarius director over this, the director had long since made an enemy of the Aquarius director, and if it weren't for the director's protection over the years, his life wouldn't be nearly as comfortable as it is now. So both emotionally and rationally, he couldn't stand by and do nothing. Moreover, with such hard evidence thrown into his face and with several directors and bureau chiefs surrounding him, even if the Aquarius director had an undying body, he might be pummeled to death by those fierce individuals. And, really, what is there to fear from offending a director who was about to be dealt with? Do it. Asterisk having dispelled his doubts through the discussion with Leon, Jerry first took a deep breath and flexed the fingers of his right hand. Then he extended his hand toward the midriff of the unconscious middle-aged Joshua, gently flicking at his heart. Asterisk. The surface rippled. Asterisk as if the whole person turned into a clear lake. The fabric near mid-aged Joshua's heart slightly swayed, silently rippling out in concentric circles. And as the ripples quickly spread, two blurred shadows gradually emerged from beneath the waves. Asterisk. Strange, why are there two things that impact his fate the most? Seeing the shadows under the lines of fate, Jerry couldn't help but frown slightly and turned to look at Leon. Leon, could you take a look? Which of these two things seems more like the Beyond the Gate given to him by the Aquarius director? I'll take a look. Moving closer to Jerry, Leon tried to discern the two emerged shadows, and his brow furrowed as well. The two colorless shadows, with the one on the left having an extremely irregular shape, and pulsating slightly as if sentient, were completely unrecognizable as any particular object. The one on the right was slightly more regular, with a faintly discernible outline, resembling a hand with fingers slightly spread, but nothing else was visible. Neither of these things seemed related to a gate. Did they? Can it be any clearer? Having a hard time determining what the two things were, Leon couldn't help but ask. At least have a more distinct outline, or perhaps some color, or can't you just take both? That's not possible. Jerry shook his head at these words. This matter, after all, involves a director. Achieving this level is already extremely difficult. As for taking both, it's even less possible. The super-high hierarchy of Cunning Hand of Fate comes at the cost of the fewest possible actions. It's effective only on the first use for the same target. Then, Senior, just pick one. Fully aware that his own luck was mostly terrible, Leon simply delegated the choice back, saying to Jerry, I have a vague notion of the Beyond the Gate, but neither of these things seems quite a fit to me, so I can't tell which one is right. Just pick any one, Senior. If you choose correctly, all the better, but if not, no matter, we can find a way to the main bureau and deliver this unconscious Joshua ourselves. The effect should be the same. All right, I'll make a selection and see. Asterisk thinking that Leon's argument made sense, Jerry nodded and accepted the responsibility of choosing. After contemplating the two shadows for a bit, perhaps finding the indistinct substance on the left somewhat unsettling, he reached toward the safer-looking hand on the right. Asterisk. When Jerry's hand touched the shadow of the hand, apart from Joshua, who was still unconscious, the other two in the room both shivered in unison. Jerry was surprised to find that he seemed to actually grasp a living person's hand, even faintly perceiving that warm touch, while Leon, on the other hand, was shocked to feel as if his right hand had just been tugged by someone. I think I understand why you grabbed my hand. After trying to pull away 3 times and finding his right hand tugged 3 times by an inexplicable force, Leon recalled young Joshua's premonitory dream and suddenly understood, saying, just like how the King of Nightmares makes the two Joshuas have nightmares together, in the judgment of the Cunning Hand of Fate, these two Joshuas should be one person with 2 fateful paths. So there appear 2 items that have the greatest influence on him. And if I'm not mistaken, the shadow on the left should be the thing that most influences middle-aged Joshua, while my right hand is probably the thing that most deeply impacts young Joshua's fate, which is why it appeared among the options as well. In that case, it barely makes sense. After hearing Leon's guess, Jerry nodded slightly in agreement, then asked with some puzzlement, Leon, what's with your hand? Why does it have such a significant impact on Prince Joshua's fate? It's really nothing. Just slapped him a couple of times. After briefly recounting the big brawl during the inheritance ritual and the incident when he and Senior Emma investigated and gave his real brother-in-law a thorough beating, Leon explained with rightful confidence in the short man's horrified eyes, I didn't use an anomalous object. It was just a pure hand slap. In the agreements of the main bureau and various royal families, it only states that you can't use an anomalous object to influence or harm royal family members. It doesn't say you can't directly beat them up, right? The agreement indeed doesn't include that clause, but that's because for a normal person, The likelihood of attacking a prince and killing him is higher than the likelihood of slapping him in the face, right? You sure are. I thought stealing from the royal family was outrageous enough. Yet there's someone like you. No wonder you're part of our virgin branch. You're certainly not one to be trifled with. After giving Leon a wordless thumbs up, the short man changed the target of the cunning hand of fate, reaching toward the vaguely trembling unknown entity on the left. Although they couldn't determine which was the beyond the gate before, now that they knew the one on the right was Leon's hand, the real beyond the gate was naturally on the left. Next, as long as he stole it out, the anomaly reappeared. Accompanied by a soft popping noise, the shadowy entity on the left burst forcefully the instant Jerry grabbed it. Then, like a beast that caught the scent of fresh flesh or a ghost finding a thread to escape purgatory, it crawled madly along Jerry's right hand. Witnessing this bizarre scene, the two immediately realized that something was wrong. Jerry didn't immediately pull back his right hand. Instead, he reached his left hand toward the office window glass and let out an urgent dog bark. Woof! With a crisp and clear response, the golden retriever's head flashed across the window glass, instantly placing an unsharpened short dagger into Jerry's left hand. Grabbing the short dagger etched with strange patterns, he vigorously pulled back his captured right hand while tightly placing the blade against the skin on the back of it, slicing off a small piece. Meanwhile, Leon tore the red hair tied around his neck and threw it at Joshua's heart. Mabu-boo, accompanied by a bizarre roar half furious and half despairing. The arm that was grabbed by the shadowy entity suddenly turned into the small piece of skin Jerry had voluntarily cut off. Following his pulling motion, a small part chasing out from Joshua's heart was instantly sliced into countless bits of flesh emanating black gas by the blood-scented red hair from the director, smeared all over the carpet. Where's the beyond the gate that was promised? What the heck is this thing? Don't go! Just when Leon and Jerry were still recovering from the scare, seemingly having recognized their race, the shadowy entity spoke human words in an unknown language. Take me out! Take me out! Following the fluctuations of the cunning hand of fate that hadn't yet dissipated, the entity pursued all the way to Joshua's heart, hammering desperately from the inside, creating intense ripples on Joshua's heart, while furiously howling, "Wealth, power, youth, even eternal life. As long as you can get me out, I can give you anything. Go to hell." Forced to use a dull knife to cut off a large piece of his own flesh to escape this unidentified entity, Jerry couldn't help but angrily curse, preparing to stop the cunning hand of fate immediately, letting this clearly dangerous entity roll as far away as possible. But just as he was about to stop, Leon reached out to hold him back. "Wait. Let me ask it a few questions." Using soul transmission to halt Jerry, Leon first took out a bandage to wrap around Senior Jerry's hand, helping him heal the wound, then stared intently at the now clearer shadowy entity, asking rapidly, "What exactly are you? And what is your relation to the Aquarius director of the Purification Bureau?" Aquarius! At the mention of the Aquarius director, the strange entity suddenly got agitated, howling, "It was him who imprisoned me. He grinds my bones. He cuts my flesh. He drains my blood. Damned Aquarius. If I get out of here, I'll make sure he personally experiences the torment I have endured for over 2,000 years. 2,000 years? Hearing the howls from the unknown entity, Leon and Jerry were shocked and exchanged glances. Then Leon continued to ask, "Are you saying the current Aquarius director has already lived for over 2,000 years? Live 2,000 years?" As if, after angrily cursing the Aquarius director a few times, the entity seemed to regain some sanity, understanding that the two humans in front of it couldn't possibly release it, likely just probing for intelligence. The entity sneered mockingly, "You wretched short-lived species, no matter how powerful you become, you can't transcend the binds of the body. Unless you replace your body, 150 years is your human limit. The Aquarius who imprisoned me wasn't this current loser. It was the Aquarius director 15 generations ago. These damned bastards made me their family's property, passing me down for 15 generations." Remembering the endless torment it had suffered over 2,000 years, the entity unleashed another bout of hysterical cursing, mixing in some incomprehensible ancient languages, accompanied by a strange, harsh sound like a knife scraping glass, stabbing Leon and Jerry's ears with pain. After a thorough and satisfying vent of curses, seeing that the two humans outside were clearly uncomfortable but not leaving, the mysterious entity nodded approvingly, then sneered, "Enough with the nonsense. I can tell, no matter what benefits I promise, neither of you bastards would take me out. But you're obviously not on Aquarius's side, and the reason you found me is probably to get a hold on him. So hurry up. Ask whatever questions you have before Aquarius notices someone contacting me. Asterisk, could this thing be trusted? Asterisk. After hearing what this entity had to say, Leon couldn't help but ponder for a moment, then turned his head slightly to give Jerry a questioning look. Asterisk. If we don't stop the cunning hand of fate, could it escape? Asterisk. Asterisk, impossible. Only an anomalous object with fate attributes can slip through the veil of destiny's pattern. But it's best not to take too long, or even if we haven't stolen the item out, it will still alert the Aquarius director. Asterisk. Then let's ask more. Thinking along the lines of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. At the very least someone with whom he could cooperate and communicate, Leon quickly spoke up. What exactly are you? Why have you been imprisoned by the Aquarius director's line for 2,000 years? I'm not a thing. I'm a god. The god of enlightenment. As it talked about its past, the self-proclaimed god of enlightenment spoke through gritted teeth. That damn Aquarius director coveted my authority to grant enlightenment. They actually found a way to entice me to descend and then imprison me, extracting my flesh and true spirit to create seeds of anomaly, stuffing them into the souls of you insects, using my authority to activate your own abnormalities. Asterisk, flesh and true spirit of a true god. So, this is how the Aquarius director created his seeds of anomaly. Asterisk. Upon learning this rather shocking truth, Leon and Jerry instantly understood why what was touched by the cunning hand of fate wasn't the Beyond the Gate, but this imprisoned god of enlightenment. Although Beyond the Gate held significant influence over mid-age Joshua's fate, so did the god of enlightenment who provided the seed of anomaly. The weight was about equal, so either could potentially appear. Moreover, although the name doesn't sound like an evil god, considering the way it referred to humans, and the madness and hatred almost oozing from its words, after 2,000 years of long torment, this god of enlightenment's mental state might be more extreme than that of an average evil god. Your Excellency, the god of enlightenment. Inwardly warning himself to only use what this mad god said as a reference, and never fully believe it, Leon cautiously replied, Within our Purification Bureau, someone has noticed the anomalies of the Aquarius director and is currently initiating an inquiry. How much do you know about the current Aquarius director? Huh? You idiots at the Purification Bureau finally noticed something was off about him. Upon hearing that someone was preparing to initiate an inquiry against the Aquarius director, the god of enlightenment let out a burst of mad laughter, then half joyfully and half mockingly replied, That's good. I thought you would only realize something was wrong once his plan succeeded entirely, and he replaced Taurus, ascended to the Watcher's Palace. I didn't expect there are still smart people among your Purification Bureau. The Watcher's Palace. At this point, Leon's body shook involuntarily, while Jerry's eyes widened in disbelief as he exclaimed, What? What did you say? I just said, your Purification Bureau's Aquarius director wants to replace Taurus and seat himself in the Watcher's Palace. Repeating what he said earlier, the god of enlightenment smirked coldly. This generation's Aquarius is too distracted, and his combat skills are the weakest in 2,000 years, but I must admit, his grasp of the Aquarius lineage's creation mystique is the most profound among the 15 generations of Aquarius. Even after I've been extracted for 2,000 years, with less than 10% of my authority left, he can still use my flesh to create a large number of hierarchy near-divine top-tier anomalous objects. His talent is not much different from the first-generation Aquarius. After giving his enemy a somewhat positive evaluation, the god of enlightenment laughed. The Aquarius lineage's Creation Mystique and the Taurus lineage's Anomaly Forge are the most complementary pair among the Purification Bureau's 13 secret techniques. The former can create anomalies, while the latter can, through forging, stabilize many originally unmanifestable anomalies into usable stable anomalous objects, resulting in complementary effects. And your Purification Bureau's Watcher's Palace is the ultimate masterpiece created by the first-generation Aquarius and Taurus by combining the two secret techniques. Briefly explaining the origins of the Watcher's Palace, the god of enlightenment continued speaking. Although this generation's Aquarius is talented, true gods find it challenging to descend under the protection of the Watcher's Palace. After 2,000 years of depletion, the quantity of high-level materials is exceptionally scarce, and coupled with his own inadequate strength, he could never reach the level of the first-generation Aquarius. If I'm not mistaken, after realizing his own level's ceiling, obsessed with Creation Mystique, he was unwilling to muddle through like this and set his sights on the Watcher's Palace. He probably hoped to glimpse something at a higher level from this ultimate work of Creation Mystique. But as for the most crucial card, your Purification Bureau protects the Watcher's Palace too securely even a director can't approach it. The only way to get close to the Watcher's Palace is to become the Ascension Palace person who guards it. So, from about 30 years ago, he started planning to create a set of composite anomalous objects, hoping to use this set of anomalous objects to replace the identity of the next Ascension Palace person and thereby go to the Watcher's Palace. Wait a minute. Replace an identity? Upon hearing this, Leon's breath involuntarily hitched. He suddenly recalled the photo in the small mirror and the wristwatch with 6 needles stuck to the photograph like a little wildcat smelling fishy. Isn't this exactly describing Anna's, if only? No wonder he was fixated on this item, even scheming to frame Senior Emma and giving middle-aged Joshua the wristwatch capable of finding, if only because this item could allow him. Wait, at this point, it seemed like Leon discovered something he'd long overlooked. His pupils instantly contracted. Something's wrong. Senior Emma's enemy wasn't just someone who recently died. Considering the timeline, the Aquarius, upon realizing he would face an inquiry, probably had already planned her frame-up and arranged for middle-aged Joshua with the Beyond the Gate to steal the photo from the Bureau. Someone about to face an inquiry within the Bureau, whose own security is uncertain, should prioritize their safety. Even if he was planning such a thing, it couldn't happen so quickly unless he had some trump card that made him nearly certain to pass the inquiry. This is bad. The director's inquiry is likely to encounter trouble. Senior Jerry. Realizing something was amiss, Leon immediately turned to the short man beside him, looking stern as he said, "Considering this during an inquiry, there's a chance the Aquarius director has prepared other contingencies. I feel what the director prepared might not be able to pin him down completely. We must immediately contact headquarters and deliver this news along with Joshua." "Huh." Prompted by Leon's reminder, Jerry also faintly sensed something was wrong and immediately nodded gravely. "You're right. We must contact headquarters immediately." Surprised face? After waiting for a while without seeing further action, Leon couldn't help but urge, "Senior, quickly contact headquarters. What are you waiting for?" "Huh? So you don't know how to contact headquarters? I just joined a month ago. I'm still the lowest level 3 incident handler. How could I have the contact details for headquarters? I'm only level 2. If you don't have it, I don't either." Exchanging a blank stare with Leon, Jerry, with a trace of hope, asked, "Didn't the director leave you any contact information before going away?"
No.
"But she said if there's a need, contact Senior Emma. Senior Emma can reach her. Emma was taken away by headquarters people yesterday." Seeing these idiots bicker outside for half the day without even having a contact number, the god of enlightenment, thinking revenge was within reach, was thoroughly disappointed. It spat violently toward outside, disdainfully evaluating them. "A couple of fools."
No.
"Don't." The young prince with freckles on his face suddenly opened his eyes on the redwood bed draped in velvet curtains. With a swift motion, he kicked off the blanket covering him and sat up abruptly.
No.
"No. No! Looking at the lavishly decorated familiar sleeping chamber and smelling the faint incense the maid had lit before he slept, Joshua, dressed in silk pajamas, couldn't help but let out a long sigh as he leaned slowly against the headboard amidst the crackling of burning wood in the fireplace. It was just a dream. After panting against the headboard for a while, calming his overly rapid heartbeat, the freckled prince, whose pajamas were soaked with cold sweat, rubbed his eyes, wearily got out of bed, and walked across the pure white wool carpet towards the armchair opposite the fireplace. He then slumped into it, staring blankly at the flickering flames inside. Even if it was just a dream, this recurring dream felt too real, as if there really was a version of himself who had personally experienced an incredibly tragic future. First, the kingdom failed to resist the invasion of the Kralik kingdom and lost 2 counties' worth of land. Then a neighboring country took advantage of the situation and invaded. The capital city fell with rebellions rising everywhere. Afterwards, his mother was deposed, his father died of illness, his sister was killed, and the entire kingdom reached the brink of destruction. He survived but, without any talent, was completely unable to turn the tide. He could only sell everything he could sell, barely keeping the royal family from being completely annihilated, drowning his sorrows in alcohol amid endless regret and self-blame every day. No. It won't happen. These are all dreams. All false. It's those damn rebels trying to influence me through nightmares. Grabbing a biography from the small table beside him and throwing it fiercely at the fireplace in front of him. A hint of scorching anger appeared on Prince Freckles' somewhat haggard face. Damn the Purification Bureau. Especially that bastard who got lucky and inherited the Duke of Lionheart's position. According to the agreement with the royal family, these branches must send personnel to prioritize ensuring the safety of the royal families of each country. But the damn Virgin branch takes the royal family's funding and does nothing. Not only do they fail to ensure his safety, but they even indulge that bastard in beating him. Touching his face, slapped several times, Prince Freckles couldn't help but grit his teeth and clench his fists. When I inherit the throne in a few years, I will definitely make them. Knock, knock, knock. Just as Prince Freckles was secretly making a harsh vow in his heart, a gentle knocking sound came from outside the door. Your Highness. The maid responsible for taking care of his daily life inquired softly from outside the door. Did you rest well? Taking a deep breath to calm the anger in his heart, Joshua responded, What is it? Well, 2 guests have come to visit you. They have credentials from the Purification Bureau and say they're here to address the issue you mentioned last time. 2 people from the Purification Bureau. The issue from last time. Upon hearing the maid's report, Joshua's heart suddenly sank, remembering the brutal mixed-gender beating from a few days ago, and he nearly fell out of his chair. Are those 2 people, a man and a woman? Is the man black-haired, wearing an old coat, looking a bit thin? No, it's 2 men. Noting the slight tremor in the prince's voice and aware of what had happened a few days ago, the maid quickly said, Your Highness, I checked on purpose. The guests today are not those 2 from the other day. Their faces and body types don't match. That's good, that's good. The hellish ordeal of being beaten and treated simultaneously a few days ago, fainting from the pain only to wake up in even more pain, had left a significant psychological shadow in Joshua's heart. Hearing that it wasn't those 2 disrespectful bastards from last time, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh and instructed, Let them wait in the drawing room first. I'll change and come over. Understood. After the maid's footsteps faded, Joshua, with dark circles under his eyes, left the warmth of the fireplace and swiftly changed out of his sweat-soaked nightclothes, then immediately headed towards the drawing room. Though the Virgin branch of the Purification Bureau was despicable, the nightmares that had kept him from sleeping well these past few days were truly intolerable for even one more day. Driven by the torment of nightmares, Joshua quickly reached the door of the drawing room, waved away the maid who wanted to open the door for him, and impatiently pushed open the door himself. Seeing 2 unfamiliar men of varying heights on the sofa, he nodded with satisfaction and asked with a slightly raised head, Can you solve my nightmares? Yes. Leon, bearing Baskin's face, nodded then stood up. Your Highness Joshua, may I ask you? Such insolence. Seeing this person from the Purification Bureau not bow to him again. Reminded of a man who also refused to bow, Prince Freckles' bad habit flared up immediately. He reprimanded coldly, Who gave you permission to call me by name? And your Virgin Branch's dereliction of duty this time, endangering my safety, you didn't even first. What? Stunned as he watched the man's appearance twist until it became that of the black-haired, black-eyed demon he could never forget in his life, Joshua shuddered violently and then, without hesitation, turned to run. Unfortunately, whether it was his reaction speed or physical fitness, Prince Freckles was far too lacking. He had just turned his body around, not even having taken the first step, when someone grabbed him by the back of the neck and, using sheer force, dragged him back. Relax. I'm not going to hit you this time. I just need your help with something. After flexing his twitchy right hand, Leon restrained the impulse to give him another slap and spoke up amidst the maid's screams outside the door. Tell me, does your royal family have a way to directly contact the headquarters of the Purification Bureau? Because the headquarters of the Purification Bureau was so hidden, even Senior Jerry, a level 2 crisis handler, didn't know how to find the headquarters. Thus, Leon naturally aimed his plans at the royal family. As for the reason, after he and Senior Emma gave Prince Joshua a joint male-female combo, the king immediately sent a complaint letter to the headquarters that same day, and the director promptly received a reprimand request for the two. So, the royal family definitely had the contact of the headquarters, and it was pretty fast. Thinking about this, Leon, who was worried that the inquiry might change, immediately pulled Senior Jerry along for a second visit with Prince Freckles, intending to use the royal family's channels to report the Aquarius director's plot to the headquarters. It seemed that a certain prince was not very willing to cooperate. You let me go. After waiting a while with his eyes closed and shivering, but not feeling a slap land on his face, Prince Joshua, who for the first time faced Leon without getting hit, finally regained a little bit of his lost courage and defiantly warned, This time is different from last time. Don't think you can use that excuse of helping me break free from control. If you dare to hit me again, I'll... Enough. I already said I won't hit you. Seeing Prince Freckles suddenly become defiant, Leon, eager to report the news to the headquarters and pin down the Aquarius director for good, had no mood to argue with him and urged him directly. I have urgent matters to notify the headquarters. You must take me through the royal family's contact method. So, this bastard needs something from me now? Hearing Leon's words, Prince Freckles was slightly stunned. Then a sudden gleam appeared in his eyes. Previously worn out by a nightmare, he suddenly perked up. Let go! Wrenching his collar back from Leon's hand and finally getting his feet on the ground, Prince Joshua straightened his crumpled collar while coldly sneering. You want my help? You are simply, Seeing Leon's slightly narrowed eyes and his right hand unconsciously lifting, having been beaten twice, Prince Freckles instinctively swallowed back the words wishful thinking. Taking you through the royal family's channels to contact the Purification Bureau isn't entirely impossible. After rationally revising his statement, Joshua crossed his arms and looked up arrogantly at Leon, who was much taller, ordering with a haughty tone. But you must first apologize to me. Bow. And then, I'm sorry, it was my fault before. Before Joshua could finish speaking, Leon, anxious to deal with the Aquarius director, couldn't be bothered to bicker with him and directly offered a very insincere apology. Then warned with narrowed eyes, Prince Joshua, don't push your luck. Don't push my luck? Do you think I'm stupid? Hearing Leon's warning, Prince Freckles couldn't help but let out a sneer. It's hard enough to get a chance to hold something over you. If I don't take it all back this time, who knows when I'll get another chance. I'm not done speaking. Seeing Leon for the first time humble and obsequious in front of him due to needing something, Joshua only felt an intense satisfaction and thus ordered haughtily, If you want my help, you must kneel and kowtow to me. Then smack yourself. At least 5. Slap. 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 I already told you not to push your luck. Raising his hand in left-to-right punches and delivering 5 hard slaps to his out-of-line little brother-in-law, Leon coldly asked, as he looked at Joshua, who was slapped to the ground. As per your request, I've finished with the 5 slaps. Is my apology accepted? Is this your attitude when you need someone? Feeling the painfully familiar sensation on his face, Joshua's gaze instantly cleared up, and he started to feel relieved that he'd only said 5. If he had managed to extend it to 10, with this brother-in-law style, the slaps on his face might have increased tenfold. Wait, brother-in-law? Discovering something strange suddenly appeared in his head. Prince Freckles was at a loss and began to recall. Wait a minute, wasn't I an only child? I don't even have a sister, so how could I have a… I actually do have a sis. That woman, Veronica. Right when Prince Freckles in the royal palace suddenly regained his lost memory, an elder with narrow eyes and slightly downturned corners of his mouth and brows couldn't help but raise an eyebrow in surprise. The lost past was unlocked? Did Nathan suddenly have a change of heart? Or was it… Thinking of this, the elder slightly lowered his head, glancing towards a brilliantly red-haired woman in the position left vacant by the Virgo director, and received an exceptionally bright smile from her. I see. Seeing the smile on the red-haired director's face, the clarity appeared in the Aquarius director's eyes. He had been planning to have Nathan retrieve the photos when Olivia initiated the inquiry, intending to leave the Virgo branch voluntarily. She likely had a similar plan. She probably had the Purification Bureau's cleaner find the hidden locations of those rebels while attending the inquiry, managing to break Phoebe's ability. She had indeed thought along the same lines. After slightly shaking his head, the Aquarius director withdrew his gaze, sitting expressionlessly in his director's seat while pondering. The headquarters of the Purification Bureau was in a hollowed-out asteroid, over 70,000 kilometers from the surface in a straight line. Even if he realized something was wrong and rushed back, it would certainly be too late, making her choice a great one. Well, hopefully Nathan could evacuate in time. Otherwise, he might be in trouble. Nicely done. Having also noticed the alteration of memories, the red-haired director couldn't help but give Leon a mental thumbs-up as she glanced at the Aquarius director, who was quite taken aback. I had given little Leon 2 weeks' time, but he solved the princess problem in less than 3 days, completing a third of the task. Seems his undercover operation was quite smooth. Moreover, removing this memory ability would certainly alarm that future Prince Joshua. With Leon's cautious character, he wouldn't act rashly unless he had discovered that Prince's identity or confirmed he didn't possess the capturing ability. Now that the memory ability had been removed, that future Prince Joshua might have already been captured. Even if he wasn't caught, likely a good amount had been discovered, suggesting Leon's operation was nearing its end. More importantly, from undercover beginning to end took just over 2 days. In such a short time, little Leon certainly couldn't make much of a mess. I no longer had to worry about him going undercover only to become the rebel leader. Olivia? The moment she noticed the joy, a subtle spiritual fluctuation emanated from the Lion Subbureau's seat beside her. Watching her smiling good friend, Beverly, the director of the Lion Bureau, sneakily stuffed a small cookie into her mouth while inquiring with curiosity via thought, "Your bureau ranked last in the year-end review, and the director scolded you so harshly. How come you can still laugh?" The smile on the red-haired director's face froze slightly when she heard her best friend's question, and she rolled her eyes in annoyance. Could you not bring up such a bothersome question when I'm enjoying myself? Besides, do you think I want to be last? Considering we only have 2.5 people left in our bureau, managing to clean up all the anomalies within the kingdom every year is already as hardworking as one can get, right? What's more, our bureau's performance this year isn't bad at all. In the first half of the year, we wiped out over a dozen Bayesect hideouts and confiscated a large batch of anomalous objects. In the second half, we even took down a descending Holy Spirit. With these achievements as a foundation, we should have been at least above average, if not at the top. Who knew so many issues would crop up at the end of the year? Negligence. Sloth. Shame. While the red-haired director was exchanging glances with her best friend, the virtual image of the director of the Purification Bureau at the center of the venue continued to harshly criticize the few branches at the bottom of the performance list, slapping each mark with dismay. As the last barrier between humans and anomalies, you carry the safety of the entire race on your shoulders. Just look at these shameful review results. I'm ashamed on your behalf. Especially the Virgin Branch. You actually had the audacity to laugh just a moment ago. After giving a heavy slap on the Dung Beetle Lady emblem of the Virgin Branch, the director of the Purification Bureau angrily rebuked. I'll excuse the Little Dog Bureau and the Harp Bureau. The old director of Little Dog just retired, and the new director is unfamiliar with the work, needing a few more years to train. Harp Bureau's main team is still frozen in a glacier after dealing with a polar remnant attack 2 years ago. Their poor performance is unavoidable. But Olivia, what do you have to say? In the first half of the year, during your joint siege with the Long Snake Bureau, you only caught 5 Bai Yi sect followers, while you somehow knocked out over 80 colleagues from the Long Snake Bureau. What exactly is the Virgin Branch up to? Director, that was just an accident, and it wasn't even a joint siege. Our actions just happened to coincide. At this point, the red-haired director couldn't help but stand up and express her grievance. I took the situation with the Bai Yi sect very seriously. After the headquarters issued the siege order, I immediately sent Emma, the strongest in our bureau, intending to complete the task assigned by headquarters as fast as possible. Emma was already at the Bai Yi sect's gathering location, preparing to execute with the execution platform, when it turned out people from the Long Snake Bureau were also ambushed nearby, and their sins outweighed those of the cultists doing the rituals, causing them to get injured accidentally. Under the cannibalistic stare from the Long Snake Bureau director, the red-haired director continued her defense fervently. You know, Emma's execution platform targets based on crimes, and it doesn't distinguish between friend or foe. As soon as she raised the platform, the people from the Long Snake Bureau were already lying down, and their cries were worse than the other, forcing Emma to stop, allowing those cultists to flee into a dream. Director, if you ask me, instead of blaming Emma for being heavy-handed, you should check those cleaners from the Long Snake Bureau, see what crimes their bureau's recruits have committed, to fall faster under the execution platform than cultists. Fine. Let's chalk up the Bai Yi sect incident as a misunderstanding then. Unwilling to argue further with the red-haired director, the director of the Purification Bureau pounded the Dung Beetle Lady emblem again, continuing to question angrily, what about the few incidents at the end of the year? An anomaly attack occurred right under your nose, causing the deaths of hundreds of nobles despite cleaners being present, and paralyzing your kingdom's logistics and military for almost 2 weeks. How do you explain this? Well, the Ryan family incident was purely accidental. After cursing Leon viciously in her heart, the red-haired director reluctantly defended. Leon wasn't even officially admitted at the time, just a newcomer with less than a month in. The opponent was a near-god-level great demon's heart. A sudden situation was beyond control. Moreover, the opponent locked the manor down, leaving him unable to seek support from the Bureau. But in the end, not only did he ensure the safety of most people, he even successfully resolved the anomaly incident. I believe this can't be considered negligence, rather deserving commendation. Ha ha! You always have an excuse. Even not being able to clean up anomalies in time, causing over 200 noble casualties, you spin it into averting disaster and ensuring the safety of most. The thickness of your skin is comparable to an anomalous object. After a couple of sarcastic remarks, the director of the Purification Bureau eased up a little, continuing, still, since that Leon is a newcomer and the situation was unique, the result is barely acceptable, just passing you through. But what's going on with the royal family? According to our agreement with the royals from each nation, they must provide funding and supplies, and unconditionally support our purification activities. The stationing branches are obliged to ensure the safety of the royal family, preventing harassment by anomalous objects to royal family members and significant nobles. Yet in your case, the princess was attacked by an anomalous object, forgotten by the whole kingdom. Then a cleaner from the Virgin Branch visited, only to have a dispute with the prince, boxing him in the reception room for a while. And from the king's complaints, This is apparently not the first time. Well, this can also be explained. After marking another black entry on Leon's record in her heart, the red-haired director, under the odd glances of over 80 colleagues, continued reluctantly. Though Leon did indeed have a small quarrel with the princess had already agreed to marry him before. Thus, aside from being a cleaner from the virgin branch, he is also a prince of the kingdom. Considering he didn't use any anomalous objects, and his few blows on his wife's brother due to a verbal dispute were light, this should be regarded as an internal royal family conflict, which is not within the scope of our Purification Bureau's jurisdiction. As for the princess being attacked, though part of it is due to our bureau's lack of vigilance, the main cause was someone's design in the background, even leveraging part of the illusion can's effects. I suspect the directors involved behind the scenes and have already submitted an inquiry request to the bureau. Oh! At this, the director of the Purification Bureau couldn't help but pause slightly before frowning and asking, "You actually intend to question a director? Olivia, such an important matter. Why wasn't I informed?" Well, hearing this, the red-haired director said with some embarrassment, "You previously received a tip-off from the Watcher's Palace, hunting the old king from the predecessors all these years. It's nearly been 8 years since your last appearance, so we didn't expect you'd project back this year when we issued the inquiry to the directors. Is it that you didn't expect me back? Or didn't expect me alive?" Upon hearing this, the virtual image of the Purification Bureau director lowered his head, glanced at a few directors with embarrassed expressions on the directors' seats, and snorted coldly, "Rest assured, the time flow on the old world soil is only 1/50th of yours. Even if you all age to death, I here would still live just fine. Ha ha, I originally contacted you at the time of the annual review just to check on the bureau's situation. I didn't expect to even catch a director being questioned. So tell me, Olivia, which director did you catch red-handed? This time, it's secure." After hearing the director of the Purification Bureau's request, the red-haired director couldn't help but curl his lips slightly, secretly giving himself a nod of approval in his heart. The reason he was so stubbornly resisting, arguing with the director despite his clear culpability, was solely to bring up the matter regarding Aquarius. Previously, he hadn't chosen to raise questions during the year-end review but opted for a private inquiry afterward. Firstly, to give Leon a few more days of delay, allowing him ample time to go undercover. Secondly, it's like Tom's Dice, Aquarius director had, over the years, used secret techniques to tailor numerous anomalous objects for many members of various branches, including several branch directors. Many people owed him favors, so he worried that raising questions during the year-end review could cause unforeseen complications. After all, with Aquarius director's capabilities and several directors close to him, they wouldn't need to do much. As long as they reacted just a bit slowly, when Aquarius failed the inquiry and tried to escape towards them, it would be enough to give Aquarius director a way out. But now that Leon had completed his undercover mission, there was no need for further delay on his behalf. Coupled with the presence of the General Bureau's director, directors close to Aquarius would surely not dare to let him off easily. Therefore, advancing the inquiry to now was undoubtedly a more suitable choice. "Then I'll speak up now." After a slight hesitation, not wanting Leon to be noticed by the directors close to Aquarius, the red-haired director refrained from mentioning his name and instead began speaking directly, unambiguously. "Last month, our Virgin branch reported an anomalous object named Happiness Apartment. Initially, we thought this object was born out of the kindness of an elderly couple who ran a charitable asylum, as well as the gratitude and longing of those they helped. However, after subsequent investigations, our bureau's cleaner discovered that this couple had contact with Aquarius director before their deaths and were suspected of being maliciously influenced, although ultimately unsuccessfully. At the time, we didn't suspect much, but later, while capturing suspected rebels in possession of anomalous objects, we found they too had ties with Aquarius director and had undergone similar deliberate guidance. After detailing Leon's findings, under the gaze of numerous directors and branch directors, the red-haired director looked up towards Aquarius director in the board seats, his expression solemnly concluding, "I believe, without reporting to the bureau, Aquarius director privately manufactured a large number of anomalous objects and frequently maliciously influenced ordinary people to fulfill conditions. Besides that, he nurtured rebels in the kingdom guarded by our Virgin branch, granting at least 12 individuals with abnormal abilities and allowing them to cause destruction everywhere. In recent years, these individuals continuously attacked officials, nobles, and members of the royal family, causing significant casualties among ordinary people, and all this should be accounted for by him. A similar situation was also discovered in the jurisdiction of the Lion Sub-Bureau. Just as the red-haired director's words fell, the Lion Bureau director, with cookie crumbs still on his lips, immediately stood up, speaking solemnly. Lovana, a first-level disaster handler in the Lion Sub-Bureau, while using the ability Scene Reproduction to investigate anomalous events in their jurisdiction, repeatedly discovered that anomalous object holders had contacted unknown individuals. Although Lovana couldn't fully restore the appearance of the unknown individuals due to their high hierarchy, with the ability to walk freely among humans, surpassing ordinary true gods, and possessing the secret technique to create abnormalities, I believe the suspicion towards Aquarius director is significant. Gemini Bureau supports the motion. After the director of the Lion Bureau Beverly finished speaking, the director of a third Zodiac branch office stood up, expressionlessly echoing. After receiving notifications from the Virgin and Lion directors, I immediately contacted the King of Kralik Kingdom and retrieved observation records of mechanical eyes from the past 30 years in the kingdom. Finally, it was found that in a total of 63 anomalous object attacks, upon judgment, the probability of an issue with Aquarius director is approximately 98.36%. Indeed very suspicious. Compass Bureau supports the motion. We also found a similar situation. Southern Cross Sub-Bureau supports the motion. Chisel Tool Sub-Bureau also discovered similar issues. I also think there's a problem. After a total of 6 branch directors, including 3 Zodiac directors, consecutively stood up, the Taurus director, full of silver hair, in the second-ranked director seat, unexpectedly stood up as well, frowning tightly. I am responsible for the Bureau's anomalous object forgings, and for nearly 20 years many branches, after completing cleaning tasks, handed over anomalous objects and materials that showed issues, with origins clearly impure. According to my understanding of anomalous objects, the hierarchy and efficacy of these objects obviously didn't match the Creator's experiences and souls, and even contained traces of the God of Enlightenment's authority. After reviewing the Bureau's related records, I discovered that, as one of the most suitable materials for the secret technique aberration generation, the soul and flesh of the God of Enlightenment have always been kept by successive Aquarius directors and never once reported an escape. Therefore, I believe these anomalous objects indeed originated from the seemed. When the red-haired director initially stood up, many directors of the branches present were still uncertain, those aligned with Aquarius director even somewhat indifferent. But after 6 directors successively rose to support, most people's expressions became solemn, and when Taurus director also stood up, expressing agreement with the judgments, almost everyone at the venue had the same thought rise in their minds. Aquarius was not to mention anything else, just Taurus director's status as a palace occupant was unmatched by others, and it could be said that before ascending to the Watcher's Palace next year, she was the highest ranked in the Purification Bureau, and even if the director of the General Bureau returned, they must indeed bow deeply upon seeing her. In the face of Taurus director's personal accusations, if Aquarius director could not provide a convincing explanation, he was doomed today. Even as one of the 12 directors, he'd be forcibly taken for memory extraction, and with these pieces of evidence displayed, his chances of passing the memory extraction were infinitely close to 0. Thank you, Taurus His Excellency, for your testimony. Politely bowing slightly to Taurus director, expressing respect for the human watchman, the director of the Purification Bureau turned and looked at Aquarius director in the 11th seat, asking with a cold gaze, Aquarius director, do you have anything to explain? Nothing. Under the surprised gazes of numerous directors, Aquarius director, who hadn't spoken from then until now, shook his head. They are right. These things were indeed done by me. He didn't even bother to struggle, just confessed directly? Faced with the Aquarius director who simply laid down and admitted guilt, The 6 branch directors who stepped forward to accuse him were momentarily taken aback. Even though they had gathered so much evidence with the goal of leaving the Aquarius director with no defense and dragging him off for memory reading, his straightforward confession still took everyone by surprise. However, after glancing at the 6 branch directors, the Aquarius director's lips curled slightly, and he said slowly and deliberately, "Although I did all these things, they can't be entirely attributed to me. While I am indeed guilty, it's not to the extent of being dragged off for memory reading." Aquarius director, could you please make yourself clearer? Hearing this, the Purification Bureau's director frowned and warned, "Besides, my time is limited, so stop playing riddles. If I haven't understood your point before the time flow in the old land restores, I'll have to assume you're trying to delay me from voting, and I'll cast my vote directly on the side that wishes to dismiss you. Sorry, as one gets older the brain slows down, and I like to speak a bit more carefully, haha." Faced with the director's relentless threat, the Aquarius director chuckled and casually apologized, then leisurely continued, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not as straightforward as Taurus's Excellency, nor am I used to being the focus of many people's attention, so I've never revealed my true identity. But now that I'm forced to this point, it seems I can only unveil it myself. In addition to being the Aquarius director, I am also the former branch director of the Gemini Subbureau." The former branch director of the Gemini Subbureau. Upon hearing the Aquarius director's words, the branch directors immediately turned their eyes to the current Gemini Subbureau's director, hoping for his confirmation. After a moment of silence, the Gemini Subbureau's director opened his mouth expressionlessly and retorted, "According to the Bureau's records, the former branch director was driven into the deep rift of Perambulate Sea's seabed during the mediation of the war between the sea race and the crustal creatures. He was supposed to have wandered into the depths of the Earth core by accident and should be dead. I did die, but not thoroughly. However, that is unrelated to what I want to say. To avoid the director voting to dismiss me, I'll leave that story for later." After waving away the mist that obscured his face, revealing his features more clearly, the Aquarius director calmly said, "Just like the Virgo Subbureau's director needs to guard the 13 ant nests, the Gemini Subbureau's director is also responsible for guarding a numbered anomalous object called Twin Mirrored Lakes, listed in the main Bureau's file as 021. As the former branch director of the Gemini Subbureau, I was the guardian of the Twin Mirrored Lakes, which you should be able to verify, right? My face should be familiar to you." The Gemini Subbureau's director was silent for a moment again, then nodded and said, "That's right, there is indeed such a thing. It's good that you can verify it." The Aquarius director nodded slightly and then continued to explain, "Every drop of water in the Twin Mirrored Lakes is a near-zero thickness double-sided crystal. 200 billion drops stacked together are only as thick as a human thumbnail, so they can be carried closely on the body. When I went to execute the mediation task, I took this item with me. That mission was indeed extremely dangerous, and before escaping into the deep rift, I thought I was already doomed. If my body had fallen into the hands of the sea folks, once they opened the container holding the Twin Mirrored Lakes, the 200 billion drops of water would merge with the ocean and gradually spread across the world with currents and evaporation." As he spoke here, the Aquarius director paused slightly, then looked around at the expressions of the people and said somewhat sadly, "I mentioned earlier that every drop of the twin water in the Twin Mirrored Lakes is a natural mirror. But what I didn't say is that intelligent creatures reflected in these mirrors will immediately split into 2 identical individuals. If these 200 billion drops of twin water were to merge into the ocean, the consequences would be unimaginable. So, in desperation, I had no choice but to drink all the twin water, charge towards the deepest part of the trench, and head straight for the Earth's heart, hoping to disappear with this thing. Unfortunately, I didn't succeed in the end. No need to continue. I already understand your point." Interrupting the Aquarius director's narrative, the Purification Bureau's director frowned and said, "You're trying to tell us that after drinking the twin water, another you was created and did all those things? Even though it sounds like an excuse, that is indeed the fact." Nodding in recognition of the director's statement, the Aquarius director said with a face of resignation, After all, it was my negligence and a personal disgrace. So I never reported it to the Bureau but chased it privately, hoping to remedy the mistake with my methods. Regrettably, the other me replicated by the Twin Water has the same abilities as me, and despite chasing him for so many years, I've never succeeded. But seeing as he acted covertly, and the damage caused over the years wasn't significant, and even some anomalous objects he created added extra income for the Bureau, I selfishly covered it up. I'm sorry, I indeed violated the Bureau's rules, and as atonement, I am willing to resign voluntarily, step down as Aquarius Director, and continue leading the pursuit of the other me. Is this punishment sufficient? Enough of this nonsense. Isn't this just playing tricks? Having listened to the Aquarius Director's given reasoning, the red-haired director couldn't help but darken his expression, while the Lion Bureau's director Beverly was so angry she could almost explode, and couldn't help but stand up and shout angrily, "If this counts as an explanation, wouldn't that mean anyone can commit any crime and simply say they have a duplicate, and it was the duplicate who did the bad deed? Also, you were the only one present during these incidences. How are we supposed to know whether you're telling the truth? If I were to come to your house and kill you, could I claim that it was my duplicate? It's not impossible." Patiently waiting for Beverly to finish, the Aquarius Director, with a tear-streaked face, replied with a chuckle, "As long as you can come up with a second twin mirrored lakes and replicate a duplicate capable of killing me, then even if I'm killed by someone named Beverly, I would firmly believe that the culprit must be the duplicate, not you. Does that answer satisfy you? Besides, there are other ways to prove what I said." The Aquarius Director smiled and said, "You can open the sealing instruments under the Gemini Subbureau to see if the twin mirrored lakes have disappeared. Additionally, those directors who led the charge against me might cross-check their own records to see if there's any time discrepancy. Is it possible that when you identified me, the real me was actually doing something else in a different location? No need to check." After dismissing the Aquarius Director's suggestion and stopping Beverly from saying any more, and seeing the smiling Aquarius Director looking at him, filled with self-assurance, the red-haired director couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Checking won't help, since if the Aquarius Director had the guts to mention these, he must have an alibi. And if even 2 or 3 instances among those hundreds of appearances of the Aquarius Director confirming the position of the other Aquarius, the remaining records become worthless. If I'm not mistaken, the Aquarius Director probably planned how to respond if discovered long before creating anomalous objects on a large scale, and perhaps even prepared this excuse 20 or 30 years ago. In these 20 or 30 years, as long as he appeared deliberately in 2 places at the same time a few times, that would be enough to prove the reality of the duplicate. And given the director's status in the Bureau without concrete evidence, it's impossible to drag him in for memory reading. As for the consequences created by the so-called duplicate, he's already volunteered to resign, so what else can be done? It seems we're losing this inquiry, losing to our lack of preparation. Beverly and I only gathered a month's worth of evidence for this inquiry, whereas the Aquarius Director prepared for at least 20 years for today. How could we possibly compete with that? Olivia! Seeing the red-haired director seem ready to give up, Beverly couldn't help but glare and said, "He's clearly talking nonsense. Besides him, there's no one else who could. Stop it. It's useless." After giving her a look to stay calm, the red-haired director communicated mentally, "I know you're unwilling, but our Purification Bureau is a relatively loose organization. Although the rules are very strict, the enforcement power is insufficient. Ultimately, whether we can drag Aquarius to read his memory isn't about who's right or wrong, but about how many people are willing to stand on our side. Over the years, Aquarius has befriended many branch directors, and he has quite a few supporters. Previously, no one spoke out for him because Taurus His Excellency, who's about to be promoted, is on our side, and Aquarius's suspicion is indeed significant. They don't want to get burned." After glancing at the branch directors with varied expressions in the meeting hall, the red-haired director sneered, "But now it's different. Although those with discerning eyes know Aquarius is likely talking nonsense, he indeed provided an explanation that can be justified. Among the other branch directors, Those who value his ability to create anomalous objects are evidently more than those who care about the casualties he caused over the years. Furthermore, Aquarius has met many people in the past 2 days and most likely privately promised numerous benefits. Faced with tangible interests, even if they know in their hearts that Aquarius most likely broke the rules, if a vote is initiated, there will indeed be quite a few standing on his side. If we could take Aquarius down in one fell swoop, these people wouldn't say anything. But now that Aquarius has provided an excuse that can be justified, it's equivalent to giving them room to maneuver. Even if we persist, it will merely result in endless arguments. As for the director, if his true form were here, he would most likely forcibly take down Aquarius to uphold the Bureau's rules. But now he's stranded on old soil and can't return. Rather than upholding the Bureau's rules, he would prioritize the stability of the current situation. Based on my understanding of him, the director will likely first step out to smooth things over to ensure there's no chaos in the Bureau. Record this matter, and deal with Aquarius when he returns. Let's endure this first. Regardless of what happens to Aquarius in the future, today we've indeed lost. In my opinion, this matter needs careful consideration. The subsequent development indeed didn't differ much from the red-haired director's prediction. After glancing at the expressions of the branch directors, the director, who had a good understanding of the situation, gave Aquarius a meaningful look and then took the initiative to smooth things over. The duplicate of Aquarius director, though it caused many problems, ultimately aimed to prevent greater damage from the twin mirrored lakes. The merits offset the demerits, so let's not mention stepping down. However, although the 12 directors have the authority to handle abnormal events independently, they should report them when unable to resolve them. Those who conceal must be punished. Aquarius director, do you have any objections? Hearing the director of the Purification Bureau's words, Beverly couldn't help but clench her fists, glaring furiously at Aquarius director on the opposite side. Objections? What objections could he have? Compared to being forced to read memories and having a god-tier brain-eating demon lick one's brain groove with its tongue, this punishment was nothing. I have no objections. After smiling at the Lion Bureau director who was glaring at him, Aquarius director slightly bowed to the hologram in the center. Your judgment is very appropriate, and also, please don't be too harsh on the branch directors. Though their direct inquiry of me without knowing the truth was reckless, it wasn't entirely without reason, so they shouldn't be punished by the Bureau, right? Leaning on past arrangements, Aquarius director casually dismantled the foundation of the entire inquiry. After forcefully reversing black and white, he even seemingly generously interceded for the opposition, proposing to waive the punishment that was unlikely to happen in the first place. Faced with this plea, which could be considered a top-level humiliation, except for the Gemini Subbureau director remaining unmoved, the other 5 branch directors who stood out couldn't help but burst out in anger. Even the red-haired director squinted his eyes. Unfortunately, while Olivia's mind was clear, her methods were slightly immature, giving Aquarius an opening. After giving the red-haired director a regretful glance and to keep the peace, the director of the Purification Bureau nodded. All right, let's put this matter on hold. Just as he was about to announce the end of the inquiry, allowing Aquarius director to pass safely, the slate beside the Purification Bureau director slightly trembled, revealing a row of wriggling strange symbols. After rubbing the symbols with his fingers and interpreting their meaning, the director of the Purification Bureau couldn't help but frown. It was a complaint message delivered via syllabic steel, with 90% of the content complaining about the Virgin Branch cleaner's disregard for hierarchy and trespassing into the royal palace to assault the prince, demanding punishment from the Purification Bureau. However, after accusing the cleaner named Leon of repeated assaults, the prince who was beaten seemed to have been coerced, thus having to convey some messages to the headquarters on his behalf. Aquarius director. After interpreting all the symbols, the director of the Purification Bureau suddenly turned around, his eyes fixed on Aquarius director in the 11th seat, asking almost word by word, Nathan, do you know this person? Noticing the subtle change in the director's expression, Aquarius director's eyebrows slightly arched. Then he nodded. I know, he's the leader of the rebels, and he seems to have had contact with another me. Yes, he had contact with another you, emphasizing another you. He repeated this phrase with ambiguous meaning and said, the director of the Purification Bureau squinted slightly. Aquarius director, during the end-of-year review you attended, a cleaner from the Virgin branch successfully captured the rebel leader and obtained some interesting information. After reading the message he conveyed, I believe these details could significantly help in capturing another you. I wonder if you'd be willing to pitch in and gather the 12 star palaces to shift Nathan and those 2 cleaners over here. So, did Nathan fail to escape and get caught by a Virgin branch cleaner? And did he expose some unfavorable information about me? After hearing the Purification Bureau director's request, Aquarius director couldn't help but frown, feeling that something seemed off. To maximize protection for the dangerous items stored inside, apart from rejecting most anomalies, the core part of the Purification Bureau's headquarters was purposely placed on an asteroid more than 70,000 kilometers from the surface, orbiting the world like the moon throughout the year. Even the most advanced Skyclipper from Croak, the city of machinery, could only fly up to 8 or 9,000 meters, and the highest unmanned probes wouldn't exceed 400 kilometers. Compared to the 70,000 kilometers distance, it was insignificant. Hence, it could be said that apart from the higher-ups of the Purification Bureau, who could use the Star Palace shift, and the very few holding special anomalous objects, no one could quickly reach here. The only exception was to gather the 12 directors or branch directors of the Zodiac branch office, using the partial solar power patched together by the Zodiac Star Palace to forcibly reflect people up from 70,000 kilometers away via sunlight. Even so, the people who came up could only stay for 1 day. When the Purification Bureau headquarters rotated to the other side of the world, weakening the solar power's influence, they would instantaneously be expelled back by the headquarters' repulsive force. So what exactly was written in the message just now? Enough to make the director propose gathering the 12 star palaces to bring people up here to confront me directly. Well done. Just as the Aquarius director began to feel uncertain, wondering how to respond, the opposite red-haired director also caught the scent of something amiss. Her beautiful fox-like eyes were filled with intense joy, and she could hardly refrain from embracing someone fiercely and giving them a kiss. 2 days. Only 2 days. From the start of the undercover operation to now, not even 2 days had passed. Little Lion had not only resolved the princess's issue and captured the prince lurking within the rebels, but had also unearthed evidence sufficient to change the director's attitude, potentially reversing the outcome of the failed inquiry and becoming the ultimate trump card. He was truly a genius of undercover work. It was really timely. Having previously communicated with the red-haired director and knowing what she had arranged, Beverly, the director of the Lion Bureau, exhaled with some relief and said, "Thanks to your department's competence, within just 2 days, they unearthed new evidence. Otherwise, it would have been challenging to catch the Aquarius afterward, and we're lucky. Not only that, apart from luck, it was also my excellent command and top-notch ability to choose the right people." After giving a self-satisfied glance to her close friend, the red-haired director took a deep breath to calm her excited emotions and then stood up to seize the advantage, saying, "Aquarius director, haven't you been working hard for many years to catch your duplicate? Now that you finally have information, why are you hesitating?" "I'm not hesitating, just worried that the director might be deceived by you." While contemplating the content of that message, the Aquarius director, expressionless, subtly added eye drops and said, "As you're well aware, the average quality of the members of the Virgin branch, including the newcomers who've just joined for a month, during internal reviews, nearly every cleaner receives evaluations as either extremely dangerous or recommended for strict surveillance. Therefore, I suggest, regardless of what information the director has obtained, please remain rational and don't easily believe their words. Open the Star Palace." After trying to discredit the news to reduce its credibility, the Aquarius director sat back in her seat, expressionlessly extended her hand, and substituted for the absent Aquarius branch director, pressing the Aquarius insignia which depicted a dung beetle pushing a bottle. Following this, mysterious and splendid yet full of ridicule insignias like dung beetle lady pushing the dung ball, lion rolling dung balls, and dung beetle with 2 huge pincers lit up one by one along the waistline of the spherical meeting room. When the last insignia, Pisces chasing dung balls, was illuminated. The previously dim asteroid instantly shone brightly and emitted a scorching light comparable to the sun. As the light gradually faded, under the watchful, grave, disdainful, or hostile eyes of the higher-ups of the Purification Bureau, the figures of 4 men instantly crossed 70,000 kilometers to appear at the center of the asteroid. Faced with this sudden teleportation, these people had not even had time to notice anything unusual, with one of them still continuing his original action, slapping another person on the head. 480 of the 500 words in the message are complaints against me. You need to redo. Seeing the surroundings change in an instant, Leon, who vaguely guessed what happened, suddenly held back the second half of his sentence, while the red-haired director's expression froze, her fox-like eyes glaring with a murderous glare. Asterisk, damn it! Why did you have to hit him at this time? You couldn't have waited. Asterisk. I thought sending the message would be the end of it. How was I to know we'd be brought over here? Feeling the angry gaze of his director, Leon, having slapped Prince Freckles in front of all the higher-ups of the Purification Bureau, couldn't help but silently curse his bad luck. He immediately spoke to divert attention, saying, "Well, due to the urgency of the situation, I worried the message might not be conveyed accurately, so it was a bit harsh. Everyone, after a thorough investigation, our Virgin branch just discovered that, apart from privately manufacturing a large number of anomalous objects, the Aquarius director also intends to target the Watcher's Palace." What? Hearing Leon's words, whether they supported the Aquarius director or opposed him, except for the director who had already seen the report beforehand, everyone present was taken aback. The regulations of the Purification Bureau are strict, but the structure is loose with low control from the top to the middle and lower levels. Many people have, to varying degrees, violated some rules, and there might even be those who've done worse than the Aquarius director. So if just turning a blind eye could bring them the powerful anomalous objects produced by the Aquarius director, at least 1/3 of the branch directors would not refuse and might even be pleased to see it happen. But the Watcher's Palace was different. As the most crucial, and not one of, front lines of the Purification Bureau and all of humanity, any matter even slightly involving the Watcher's Palace leaves no room for compromise. It must be immediately and thoroughly investigated until the truth is uncovered. Aquarius director. After a number of branch directors preliminarily accepted this dreadful news and everyone's attitude turned serious, the director of the Purification Bureau finally spoke up, asking, "What do you have to say in response to this accusation from the Virgin Branch Cleanser?" "Of course I do." Surprised that his plans had indeed been unveiled, the Aquarius director felt a tightness in his heart, yet still maintained a composed demeanor as he questioned. "Firstly, the evidence. No matter the importance of the Watcher's Palace, you can't convict me as a director based solely on the word of a level 3 cleanser. Can you? You want evidence, do you?" Seeing him still resist stubbornly, Leon squinted slightly and responded, "There is indeed evidence. Jerry Sr. Coming." Carrying the unconscious middle-aged Joshua, Jerry walked to the center of the meeting hall, first bowing to the various branch directors, then rolled up his sleeves, revealing a right hand with the middle and index fingers almost the same length. "My ability is the cunning hand of fate, which allows me to stealthily derive the thing that most significantly impacts a person's fate." After briefly explaining his ability, Jerry took a deep breath, extended his right hand, and probed forcefully at the heart of middle-aged Joshua, causing 2 familiar phantasmal shadows to reappear. "Ha! You didn't expect it to be me, did you?" Through the heart of middle-aged Joshua, seeing his frowning old rival on the opposite side, the god of enlightenment couldn't help but laugh heartily, then shouted with gritted teeth, "Aquarius! I am perfectly aware of all the things you did in the past. It's not just about your secret production of anomalous objects, but also your scheme to use those 6-part set anomalous objects to seize this generation's Taurus Ascension Palace person identity. Every single detail. I know it all. Accept it, Aquarius. It's over for you. To think one could use the cunning hand of fate and go so far as to steal from the god of enlightenment. Had I known this would happen, I should have left Nathan with a few more life-saving anomalous objects back then." Staring at the old friend, who had served his lineage for 15 generations. The Aquarius director couldn't help but shake his head. He then ignored both Leon and Jerry, raising his head to sincerely gaze at the director of the Purification Bureau and said, "Director, the god of enlightenment has been imprisoned by our Aquarius lineage for 2,000 years, and I've alone extracted its flesh and true spirit over 1,000 times. No matter how deep-seated a hatred might be, it couldn't compare to even a fraction of its hatred towards me. Are you truly going to suspect a director who has served in the Bureau for nearly 100 years because of the testimony of an outer god? I'm sorry, it's not a matter of what I believe or not." After the light purple eyes flickered slightly, the director of the Purification Bureau replied calmly, "Unlike the private creation of anomalies earlier, this time involves the safety of the Watcher's Palace, leaving no room for negotiation. Whether it's you, other directors, or even myself as the director, if accused and if the accuser presents valid evidence, one must immediately prove one's innocence. If unable to prove innocence, one must directly undergo memory reading." Aquarius director, do you have anything more to defend against this accusation? No more. Glancing at Leon standing beside the director of the Purification Bureau, the Aquarius director stated calmly, "Bring the brain-eating demon over. I choose to directly undergo memory reading. Also, I'm quite curious why the Virgo branch is so focused on me. Not only did they coordinate with 6 branch directors to question me, a director, but they also risked releasing the imprisoned evil god by forcibly contacting the materials used for the abnormal Genesis sorcery. I am the god of enlightenment. You damned human, you are the material. Just let me out." Interlocking his fingers and applying slight pressure, using some unknown method to silence the god of enlightenment, the Aquarius director gazed meaningfully at the red-haired director. "Olivia, if after the memory reading it turns out that I did nothing, could you also undergo memory reading? And besides you, on what grounds?" Hearing the Aquarius director's request, before he could finish, Beverly, the director of the Lion Bureau, couldn't help but stand up and angrily refute. "Even if you didn't do the first investigation today, you're still implicated, and the second involves the Watcher's Palace. Olivia has shown no suspicious behavior. Why should she undergo memory reading? Speaking of suspicious actions, she certainly has done some, and not just one." Glancing at Beverly, the Aquarius director stated nonchalantly, "The Bauhinia family, which once attempted to overthrow the royal family, should have been entirely executed according to the laws of the kingdom. Yet, Emma Alman, who originally didn't meet the standard, was admitted to the Virgo branch by her, allowing her to secretly plot revenge and covering for her several times. Furthermore, last month, she brought Leon Lane, who also didn't meet the Purification Bureau's employment standards but had a right to noble inheritance, into the Virgo branch and dispatched him to Ryan Manor to conduct an investigation. The outcome of that investigation was the occurrence of an event called the Ryan Blood Night, wherein the top members of the Lionheart family were nearly wiped out, with no one to inherit the Duke's title. Through a series of coincidences, this position was then filled by a third-class cleaner, whom she had hired exceptionally." Pausing slightly here, the Aquarius director continued with an insinuating tone amidst the contemplative expressions of several branch directors. "Additionally, Tom Rains, a first-level catastrophe handler from the Virgo branch, who has a record of single-handedly expelling a true god, briefly disappeared from the main bureau's surveillance after completing the clearing task of the Blood Pine Ridge incident. Coincidentally, his strongest abnormal ability is a pair of dice that can create coincidences, granting a 60% chance for all impossible things to become possible, and the time he went off the main bureau's radar coincides perfectly with when Leon Lane obtained the Duke's position." After finishing these statements, the Aquarius director continued, gazing meaningfully at the frowning red-haired director. "These issues were all discovered during my investigation of my own replicants. In recent years, my replicants have frequently appeared in the capital city, cultivating a force named the Rebels to completely overthrow the royal family, while you seem to be deliberately gathering the heirs of the old nobility. Therefore, I have reason to suspect that you have previously contacted my replicants and obtained certain benefits from them, or simply made some extremely dangerous cooperation, which is why you are so resolute in questioning me and can always present evidence that I find difficult to refute. Under the suddenly sharp gaze of the director of the Purification Bureau, the Aquarius director leisurely stated, "Olivia, are the doubts I've raised enough for you to also undergo memory reading?" Asterisk strange. Why would the Aquarius director still bring these up? Is he in his death throes? Or does he actually have some trump card that gives him the confidence to withstand the memory reading? Asterisk. Glancing towards the director of the Purification Bureau and noticing the change in the director's expression, the red-haired director couldn't help but rub her furrowed brow. Though she was still uncertain of the Aquarius's intent, she could only nod slightly and agree. "Yes, I agree to undergo memory reading. However, the order must be after you. If it's proven that no replicants exist or that you are indeed plotting against the Watcher's Palace, then my memory reading must be cancelled. It's not just you. This third-class incident handler also needs to undergo memory reading." Raising his hand in Leon's direction, the Aquarius director, smiling at this troublesome fellow who had been overlooked but managed to capture Nathan within 2 days and promptly delivered key evidence, said, "Considering the close relationship between him and you, if it proves that I'm not at fault, then he must also undergo memory reading. I object. This issue has nothing to do with Leon." At these words, the red-haired director's expression tightened as she voiced her opposition. "He's only been with the Virgo branch for a month. If a memory reading is truly necessary, let it be me." Additionally, besides the Ryan Blood Knight, Leon has been diligent and fielded outstanding results during every mission, even having a record of defeating a Holy Spirit. Being subjected to memory reading by the brain-eating demon equates to a forced true God-level corrosion, which would inevitably affect his mental stability. For such a promising cleaner, it would undoubtedly be a... His mind doesn't need corrosion. It's already extremely unstable. Interrupting the red-haired director, the Aquarius director replied indifferently, "I seriously reviewed his dossier. After the Ryan Blood Knight, the 2 investigators sent by the main bureau gave him an interesting assessment. They unanimously believed that this third-class cleaner is extremely dangerous, possessing beliefs so rigid they border on madness, harboring numerous dangerous secrets in his heart, recommending tight main bureau surveillance. Additionally, he had contact with the God of Enlightenment while searching for evidence against me, and there's the possibility of him being controlled or even parasitized by the God of Enlightenment. Undergoing memory reading with you might even be considered a form of protection. Protect you, my dear." Gazing at the massive cage emerging from beneath the center of the venue and the brain-eating demon within, which looked even more revolting than a hagfish, Leon couldn't help but shiver. The mere thought of being subjected to memory reading meant having that thing's tongue slither across his brain's grooves made his scalp tingle uncontrollably. If this could be considered protection, then I sincerely hope the Purification Bureau protects you for a lifetime. Worse still, even though the red-haired director argued consistently and logically, the director of the Purification Bureau showed signs of being persuaded after hearing the Aquarius director's proposal, particularly squinting inadvertently when he heard the possibility of Leon being controlled by the God of Enlightenment. One situation posed the risk of the God of Enlightenment escaping, while the other concerned a supposedly promising third-class cleaner. To a director hoping the Purification Bureau would remain as stable as possible, these 2 matters couldn't be weighed equally at all. If the one voicing opposition wasn't Olivia, who possesses 2 numbered anomalous objects and ranks among the top in combat strength among directors, but some other branch director, he might have already resolutely made up his mind. Taurus, His Excellency. Seeing that the director of the Purification Bureau seemed swayed, the red-haired director could only look towards the hesitant Taurus director, seeking some form of assistance and saying, "You have met Leon and even personally helped craft an anomalous object for him. You should understand his potential. Receiving the corrosion of a true God-level entity so early would undoubtedly harm his psyche. If memory reading truly needs to be conducted, I should be the one to undergo it." Indeed. After some hesitation, the Taurus director nodded. The child's potential is remarkably excellent, with a steady disposition and intelligent mind. He is most likely to become a level 1 cleaner in the future and might even take over a branch director's position and become a force that protects humanity. Undergoing memory reading prematurely would be such a pity. Setting aside other considerations, after suffering pollution from a true God-level demon, the Holy Spirit pendant I crafted for him would inevitably be affected, and its effectiveness might be reduced by more than half, effectively severing his future in advance. Yet what does it matter if his future is severed in advance? Once the Taurus director finished speaking, the Aquarius director's brows slightly drooped. Speaking indifferently, Taurus, His Excellency, one side poses the risk of the god of enlightenment escaping, while the other is merely a third-class cleaner whose potential hasn't even been realized. I don't see how this holds any comparison. But, all right, everyone stop talking. With a slight distortion in his form, the director of the Purification Bureau spoke slowly. The time flow on my side is beginning to slow, leaving us with little time to communicate, and the most important matter currently is the safety of the Watcher's Palace, so I will make the decision directly. Next, let the Aquarius director undergo memory reading first. If any issues arise naturally, there is nothing more to say. If the reading shows no problem, then Olivia must undergo reading. And if after Olivia undergoes reading and no issues come to light, then this cleaner named Leon may skip the memory reading. Aquarius director, please proceed. Wise decision. After slightly bowing to the director of the Purification Bureau, the Aquarius director left his seat and slowly walked toward the massive cage in the center of the venue. As he approached, the icosahedral prison composed of 30 blazing golden beams gradually opened, revealing the true form of the colossal creature within. Hiss! Accompanied by a peculiar hiss that resonated within everyone's soul, the hideous demon, resembling a gigantic octopus-like mollusk, rapidly spread out, instantly covering nearly a quarter of the venue. Next, its mouth, similar in shape to a nautilus's beak, slowly opened. Hundreds of slender tongues, dotted with purple-red fleshy tumors, writhed like clusters of bizarre sea serpents, lunging toward everyone. Settle down. Along with a shout, the Aquarius director interlaced his fingers and pressed forcefully downward towards the spread-out brain-eating demon. A loud, dull thud was heard. The enormous demon, nearly 30 meters in size, seemed to be weighed down by something incredibly heavy, collapsing in the center of the venue with a pained wail. God-suppressing forked fingers, a secret technique specifically developed by the Aquarius lineage to suppress imprisoned true gods. Watching the Aquarius director forcibly subdue a god-tier brain-eating demon with a simple hand gesture, the director of the Purification Bureau couldn't help but narrow his eyes, a hint of admiration showing. The secret technique developed by the original Aquarius was indeed formidable. Once a true god's authority was sealed, no matter how strong its physical power, it could be effortlessly subdued with a single gesture. The only regret was the slightly high threshold, resulting in no one besides this generation's Aquarius being able to master it. Such a pity. After seeing the Aquarius director release the brain-eating demon's tongues and willingly expose his face for licking, the director of the Purification Bureau couldn't help but shake his head. If it were merely to create anomalies privately, there probably would be room for maneuvering. But concerning the safety of the Watcher's Palace, regardless of this generation's Aquarius's talent, if the extracted memories proved problematic, then what awaited him would only be, Noticing something amiss, the director of the Purification Bureau couldn't help but frown. When the brain-eating demon first spread out, to prevent the 4 people moved there from being crushed, he directly shifted the podium back and shielded them at his rear. However, instead of staying safely behind him, they peeked and pried about. One of them, named Leon, even stealthily extended his hand to touch the rear of the god-tier brain-eating demon. ZZZ. Encounter. Materialism. Information. Name. The rumination of the memory eater. Memory. Corruption. Appearance. Approximately 30 meters in size, a gigantic demon resembling a mollusk cuttlefish, identical to that of a normal living adult god-tier brain-eating demon. Ability. Memory reading. Cost. None. File. A god-tier demon that descended through an accidentally opened abyss rift 900 years ago at Sao in the Thousand Sails maritime country, causing unimaginable casualties. nearly annihilating Sao Kingdom's 0137 numbering unanchored ship. After ravaging Sao for 3 months and devouring the memories of nearly 100,000 people, this god-tier brain-eating demon was finally captured by the joint efforts of Pisces and Aquarius divisions of the Purification Bureau and given to the contemporary Taurus director for modification. Removing, after a series of treatments, the demon's authority was stripped, its emotions and intelligence were cleansed, leaving only the instinct to devour memories, and it was kept as a special anomalous object for memory reading in the Purification Bureau headquarters basement till now. Evaluation. An extremely powerful anomalous object, tendril-like tongues somewhere between flesh and spirit, can easily penetrate the brain of any sentient creature, capturing their memories through licking their cerebral grooves, and due to its high hierarchy, even a true god cannot resist its reading. Contamination value, 59.9. This thing is truly disgusting and truly deadly. After secretly touching the rear of the god-tier brain-eating demon and gaining intelligence on it through materialism, Leon felt a chill run down his spine, not to mention whether its reading would extract memories about his transmigration. Just letting its disgusting slimy tongue into one's brain was enough to make one want to die. Watching as the clusters of tongues penetrated into the Aquarius director's head, scraping out something with those purple-red fleshy tumors, Leon couldn't help but shudder. If the Aquarius director wasn't bluffing and actually had a plan to pass through safely, the one being licked inside out would have to be himself and the director. Judging by the Aquarius director's bulging veins and twitching body, the experience of having one's memory read seemed far from pleasant. No, absolutely not. He must quickly come up with a plan, ensuring that the Aquarius director couldn't execute any trick. Looking at the corruption tag in the name, the rumination of the memory eater, and recalling the ability to forcibly manipulate corruption, anomalous objects with I am the demon, Leon clenched his fist tightly and then extended his guilty right hand again to provide the Aquarius director with an extra layer of insurance. However, at this moment, a somewhat cold voice came from ahead. Stop! Seeing that touching the rear of the brain-eating demon once wasn't enough and Leon was even about to touch it a second time, the director of the Purification Bureau couldn't suppress his frown as he inquired, "Why do you keep touching her rear?" Goodness, after this thing spread out, it looks like a cut-open giant octopus. How could you tell which end was the head and which was the rear? Unable to withhold an internal complaint, Leon had to retract his right hand under the scrutinizing gaze of the Purification Bureau director, and then awkwardly replied, truthfully, "My ability is through touch, to forcibly obtain part of the intelligence of the anomalous object being touched." After listening to the Aquarius director's words, I worried he'd play tricks while undergoing memory reading, so I wanted to check if there were any loopholes in this thing. You want to find this thing's loophole? Just you? Unaware that Leon's purpose in finding loopholes was actually to exploit them himself. After staring into Leon's eyes for a moment and somehow verifying the truth of his statement, the Purification Bureau director turned his head back and warned coolly, "Don't bother trying. When this thing was at its peak, it was on par with Olivia in power. Now its authority has been drained, but its hierarchy remains near true god level, not something a third-class cleanser like you can shake. Well, I've actually already figured out some things." In an effort to touch the brain-eating demon's rear once more to employ I am the demon as a hindrance to the Aquarius director, Leon tried to demonstrate his value and began to articulate. This thing is called the rumination of the memory eater. Its former identity was that of a god-tier brain-eating demon that descended upon the Thousand Sails maritime country and was ultimately captured by the joint efforts of the Pisces and Aquarius bureaus. 900 years ago, the Taurus director of that time washed away its emotions and memories, removed its memory-digesting organs, and replaced them with the dream memory furnace, capable of converting memories into dreams. The memories it consumed wouldn't be digested but would circle through the dream memory furnace, leaving a batch of replicated dreams before being spat back out. When Leon started to narrate, the director of the Purification Bureau was initially dismissive, even casting a glance towards the red-haired director, quite dissatisfied with her unauthorized disclosure of important intelligence. But as Leon spoke more, even describing how the Taurus director of 900 years ago processed that god-tier brain-eating demon, the expression of the Purification Bureau director began to change. If it were something documented within the Bureau, that would be one thing, but Leon revealed many details that had no written record whatsoever, not even known to himself as director, let alone Olivia. So, he only touched it briefly and figured out so much? Staring at Leon with eyes filled with shock, after sensing his aura, the director of the Purification Bureau's eyes gleamed with the light of understanding. Asterisk, judging from his contamination level, he's only about average for a third-class cleanser. Such a weak individual could forcibly obtain intelligence on a true God-level anomalous object while ensuring his own safety. Asterisk. No wonder Olivia and the Taurus director were both protecting him. This kid truly was a treasure. The director sure had a penchant for utilitarianism. Leon noticed the director's eager gaze, sensed an underlying fervency, and decisively stopped his narration, not revealing everything he knew. But the Purification Bureau director, having taken the bait, couldn't help but ask, "Why did you stop? What's next?" Leon replied with some difficulty, "The rest. I honestly feel a bit weak, and I'm also afraid of contamination, so I only grazed it lightly earlier, but you stopped me the second time. Then keep going." Taking a look at the Aquarius director to ensure the memory read process wasn't disturbed and continued properly, the Purification Bureau director decided immediately, "Touch as much as you need, as long as you can. See how much intelligence you can eventually figure out. Besides, don't worry about contamination. With me here to hold it off for you, there won't be any problems." "All right then. You told me to touch it. If the Aquarius director ends up in trouble because of it, you can't blame me." Giving his cheek a discreet bite to suppress a budding smile, Leon nodded firmly. He then switched to, "I am the demon," and extended his guilty right hand towards the brain-eating demon's rear, carefully adding a warning. "Please, do hold it off well. Rest assured. Go ahead and touch." Finally, it was over, as wave after wave of memory flowed back into his mind through those sticky purple-red tongues. The Aquarius director gradually regained consciousness and shakily stood up. After thoroughly checking the backup plan he had prepared and confirming it wouldn't be detected, the Aquarius director, whose brain was nearly boiled by the brain-eating demon's licking, raised his head with the smile exclusive to a victor, looking towards the Purification Bureau director. Asterisk, this is stable. All those years of preparation weren't in vain. This time it's absolutely foolproof. Asterisk. Apologies. There was a slight issue, and the recent read doesn't count. Receiving a bewildered look from the Aquarius director, the Purification Bureau director awkwardly explained, "This thing's been crafted for over 900 years. While the core dream memory furnace hasn't broken, it's been somewhat severely corroded by the brain-eating demon's gastric acid. The memory reading wasn't entirely successful. I've just reviewed the dreams expelled by the dream memory furnace and found only a small portion of your memories were replicated, which isn't enough to prove your innocence, so could you please do it once more?"